It's Screonk, a Godzilla movie marathon where we're stomping through Godzilla's filmography. I'm Derek, and I've seen all the Godzilla movies.
And I'm Doug, and I've seen 6 Godzilla movies.
And we're continuing Mothra March, as the Queen of the Monsters has her first encounter with the King of the Monsters in Mothra vs. Godzilla. Also known as Mothra Tai Gojira in Japanese, of course. Godzilla Against Mothra, which was used as the original international title. Makes sense. Mm-hmm. And, of course, in the United States, known as Godzilla versus the Thing.
How fucking dare?
What? We'll talk about it. It's actually like a good dub. It is a good dub. That is the only problem with that movie, is it being called versus the Thing. Well, I'll talk about the marketing. I'll talk about the whole marketing for it. It was released in Japan on April 29th, 1964. The creative team behind this one is a whole murderer's row of everyone that we know. Directed by Honda, produced by Tanaka, special effects by Tsuburaya, scored by Ifukube, written by Sekizawa. All the people that we have interacted with in the past few movies. It is the A team working on this movie. Honestly, it includes the cast too, which we will talk about. But Doug,
hi.
We already have talked about Mothra in our last episode, which you should listen to if you haven't listened to our episode on the solo Mothra movie. We had a guest, Hamish Steele, who was very good. That basically, I think, is going to be kind of part one of this conversation. So
yeah, you should listen to that.
You should absolutely listen to that. We have amazing conversation, and I think a lot of the context from that movie will apply to our conversation here. But Doug, you've already met Mothra, so I know you love her. What are your thoughts on overall thoughts on Mothra's first interaction with Godzilla?
Yeah, well, okay. I mean, lots of thoughts.
Sure, there will be many, but like overall general thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'll just, I liked it. If we're just starting with, did I enjoy this movie? Yes, I did. Yeah. And I think there were things about it that were surprising. And there were many things about it that were surprising, but typically they were good surprises. So, overall general thoughts, good stuff, good thoughts, good feelings, good surprises.
Yeah. I think this is a really interesting one. This is a really well loved one in, I think, the Godzilla fandom and cinema fandom thing. Like, people really like this movie a lot. Like, it's very widely regarded to be one of the best Showa-era movies. I do think it's an interesting one because, like, I feel like even in this podcast, having gone in other directions for other eras, this is kind of, I feel like, your first taste of what is the traditional Godzilla fights another Toho kaiju in the Godzilla universe. Because I feel like every other thing has had an asterisk by it, right? Like, versus King Kong, that was like that had a lot of other baggage behind it. It was King Kong, another studio. It was Godzilla's big return after being missing for a decade. Like, that is its own weird, unique thing. Like, Anguirus was just not really the center point of that movie.
Careful what you say about my boy Anguirus.
Right. But it wasn't like that movie wasn't billed as Godzilla versus Anguirus. Anguirus was just like another monster in that movie. And even like, Godzilla 2000, he technically is fighting another Toho kaiju, but like, he doesn't fight that monster until the very end of the movie, really. And most of that movie is like more tied into being a response to the 98 American movie. Right. So like, this is in a lot of ways the idea of Godzilla fights another kaiju who is a kaiju in the Toho universe of their own right. Like, and that is the point of the movie. This is kind of like the first time on this podcast that we're really seeing what becomes the more traditional sort of mainstay sort of setup for a Godzilla movie going forward.
Cool. Yeah. And I'm glad you said that, like, King Kong versus Godzilla is kind of its own special thing, because I do feel like this, and maybe this answers a question we posed in the last one, or that you posed to me, which is, do you think this will be more of a sequel to Mothra, or do you think this will be more of a sequel to King Kong versus Godzilla? This absolutely feels more like a sequel to Mothra. This does not feel like it is. This feels like it's barely in the same universe as King Kong versus Godzilla.
It's kind of funny because it's almost like, because it takes such a long time for Godzilla to show up in this movie that it's almost like you're watching just a Mothra sequel that Godzilla just like invades and then takes over. Like, because there's a version of this movie that is just a straight up Mothra movie that I think has the same setup for the plot of like, oh, this is how infant island now interacts with Japan again for the second time, and things play out differently with just Mothra. It's just Godzilla shows up and starts wrecking shit, and sort of like, oh, well, now we have another problem to deal with. All right, well, this changes things.
Yeah, I really do think this is a Mothra movie that Godzilla gets dragged into more than it is a Godzilla movie that Mothra shows up in.
Fully agree, which makes it which is really interesting, I think. Yeah,
for sure.
So a little bit about the background of this movie. I mean, it's kind of funny because it's like, I feel like the gist of why this movie exists is so easy and obvious. Like King Kong versus Godzilla, big success. So of course you do another one. Mothra had come out already. That was a big success. Why not smash them together? Have your big crossover. Like, of course. And I think the other side of it too, like we talked about this a lot with the King Kong episode and in the Mothra episode, but like Toho, and at this point even Honda, we're sort of like aware, like we're just going to be pushing things a little bit more towards an all ages, type of thing here. Honda, I think, attributed a lot to like TV, the rise of television kind of taking over, and that meant the demographic became a lot more broad. I think that because TV was becoming more popular than movies, in order for movies to kind of compete with that, it's like we have to make sure everyone is able to come to the movies, which means that kids can come with their families. Therefore, these movies have to be more accessible to kids and adults alike. The one thing I do like in the Ishiro Honda biography book that I've cited a lot, that I'll cite in the show notes, there's a quote from Kenji Sahara, who is our main capitalist bad guy in this movie. And he says that, like, he recalls talking with Honda about this, of Honda, like recognizing like, yeah, we have to, we just have to logically appeal more to younger audiences. But he says that Honda didn't want to condescend to youngsters, and Honda specifically said that kids are more mature than we think, which was sort of, I think, his thought process going into this movie. I think probably even more than King Kong versus Godzilla, where like this movie isn't like a comedy in the way that King Kong versus Godzilla kind of was. This movie does, like you said, is more of a Mothra movie. It is something that I think, like Mothra was a bit of a kind of a fairy tale with a very, very straightforward, like right, wrong, hero, villain. Like this movie, I think sort of continues that. There's not a lot of complexity in terms of like shades of gray really, but it's also not stupid either. It's still dealing with the horrors of capitalism and like, and some colonialization elements and stuff like that too. Just like what Mothra was dealing with. The other thing that I think is really interesting about this movie, that I think is an interesting context, and I'll be curious how much you feel like this comes out in this movie, is like the context in which this movie is coming out is that basically everything is great.
What do you mean?
I'll explain it. So like, in terms of film stuff, Toho is doing great. Their movies are a big hit. Even like Tsuburaya by this point has founded Tsuburaya Productions, which is like a name you'll see on Ultraman and everything, right?
Yeah.
Things are going great with them. At the same time, in Japan, this is when there's sort of like this prime economic boom happening. Literally called the economic miracle is like the name for it.
Okay.
So like there's this weird, like if you compare the first Godzilla, which is very much in the shadow of World War II, like what the city looked like in 1954 versus what it looks like 10 years later, 1964, there's like been a construction boom. Like Tokyo, the sort of what we know of Tokyo now as being like this very vibrant modern place. Like that's when this is really starting to happen. Like the Olympics come later this year, I think, in Japan as well. What the city is and what it represents isn't like memories of war anymore. It is sort of like what we know of Japan today as being like this really innovative sort of fast moving sort of place. Yeah. There's a lot of really interesting stuff in David Kalat's book that I'll also, of course, cite in the show notes about the history of Godzilla. But he sort of kind of summarizes it really, really well. Just the idea that it's like the economy of Japan had been steadily growing since the end of World War II. Obviously, they were in a terrible place at the end of World War II, so it can only go up. But there's like this famous speech that Prime Minister Hayato Ikeda gave in 1960, where he promised that the incomes of Japanese people would double by the end of the decade, which is absurd. Like that is an absurd thing to say and promise, except it did happen. And in fact, it actually doubled in only 8 years.
Oh my
That's
God.
how well the economy of Japan was booming by this point. Yeah. So this movie is coming out in the exact middle point of that. Like, people are literally like waking up a day after seeing that their paychecks are bigger than they were before, you know, like literally seeing the economy grow right before their eyes in real time. And so there's a quote from Kalat's book that I really like. He says specifically, the transformation of Japan into one of the world's most formidable financial powers meant the raising of ancient traditions and societal conventions. Average Japanese citizens were torn between the glories and benefits that this miracle provided and the sense of loss that came with it. So what you end up getting is this really interesting kind of push-pull of like, this sort of conservative idea of like, we are a country that has, you know, that is rich in like ancient tradition. If you're like a white American of like European descent, like the colony of the United States is a relatively new country. We don't know really what it's like to have a history that spans so long before us. Like, if you want to understand U.S. history after it was founded as the United States, obviously there's indigenous populations who've existed for long before then, but like the colony of the United States of America, you can very easily understand the history of that pretty quickly because it's very short. But if you're someone who has been in a culture where like your history spans such a vast, long amount of time, when you have this rapid growth economically and technologically, and you see the world like changing so radically in front of you, like that sort of interesting rift, I think it makes sense that that would be happening. And I think that you can draw those threads in this movie where you sort of have like capitalists trying to like use their technology on this like giant egg and like building a theme park around it against like the infant islanders who are sort of like, we're just trying to like live our lives with our ancient traditions, man. Like, what are y'all doing? Yeah.
That's also fascinating because when you try to figure out where Godzilla fits into that, given the legacy of Godzilla to this point, it does kind of make sense, whether it was a conscious thing or not. I imagine it wasn't, that Godzilla almost seems incidental in this movie. Like, this movie is no longer, at least this one specifically, is really no longer about that sort of like aftermath of nuclear war as much, right? Like, they still talk about it. It's still a thing. But the fact that this movie's not really about that, it's kind of funny that Godzilla ends up being this sort of like, oops, I'm also here. I'm just trying to get out of here. Sorry to have stepped on your buildings type of situation.
Yeah, I know. It totally makes sense, you know, because it's like, I even both the Kalat book and the Honda biography, like, are like, they both bring up the idea that it's sort of like the sort of recent memory of the war is like only going to fade more and more with time. And I think fades faster culturally if the rebuilding happens that much faster and life gets better that much faster. And therefore, like, Godzilla, the context of Godzilla sort of also kind of gets a little bit forgotten in the cultural memory, right? Like, so like, and if you want to keep this character around, you do end up kind of having to like reinvent him to mean something else. And in this movie, like, it doesn't really mean anything. It is just sort of like Godzilla is just a creature in the world who represents just something bad, you know?
Right. The reinvention isn't like, this movie isn't the result of the reinvention. It feels like the reinvention is yet to happen.
Right. So interesting.
Yeah. I think the economic boom can be felt even outside of the sort of like push-pull of that rift. Because I think even just sort of the setting for this movie, the sort of like everyday person, or sort of what's happening in the background informing things, I think you can feel it too. I mean, this is the first movie that we've talked about in this sphere that doesn't start or heavily feature like working fishermen, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
And instead it opens with like a new development along the beach that people are excited to be a part of, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And people who are just sort of everyday people are excited to see this new attraction that is the egg. Your everyday people and your everyday circumstances in this movie just feel different than a post-war population or or a population that still has that in the back of their minds, you know?
Yeah, I think also too on that line, like when Godzilla shows up and starts destroying buildings, like he does, it is so much more incidental than it's ever been, where he's literally tripping over things. And I think that like if you think about it, if this movie is sort of just a response to like, it's weird how quickly we're building everything up when there is like this long history of like ancient traditions and stuff. The idea that like this ancient monster could just show up and accidentally obliterate everything that you've built, doesn't matter how wealthy you are, you can have a safe full of cash. Yeah. You can still get fucking crushed by Godzilla when he crushes your building, like that. And that feels very, very explicit in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't typically like to read like word for word things that are in my notes, but you mentioned the like incidental nature of the damage. So I just must say what I titled my notes, which is Godzilla and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day, aka honestly, Mothra versus Godzilla.
Yeah, that's so true.
That's what this feels like. It feels like he woke up in the wrong movie. It feels like he woke up at a point where they're sort of like, no, we're not telling that story, man. Like, it's really fascinating.
It is really fascinating. Yeah, it's so interesting. Well, I guess you mentioned that like just the weird way that Godzilla is in this. I think my understanding is that as it was originally conceived, this movie was even more of a Mothra sequel than it ended up being.
Oh,
where
interesting.
Like the original screenplay, Godzilla would actually, like when Godzilla does enter the story, he's attacking Relistica specifically. Like just to follow up on that. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Right.
How'd he get over there?
I don't know.
Although I guess I don't know where Relistica is. Did we know where
knows.
It is on the map? Did they ever show it? I don't remember.
I don't think they showed it on the map, and that's fine. Yeah. So I think it was going to like pick up a little more explicitly with that. It's unclear to me if like there was ever any intention to bring over characters and stuff. Like my theory is that there was at least an idea to maybe bring over some of the Mothra characters, given how like our main trio is so similar in many ways, like archetypally to the trio from Mothra,
Totally.
That maybe they just like couldn't get all the actors. So they're like, well, we'll just, we'll just write similar versions of them.
Yeah.
But obviously as it stands, it's less tied to Mothra directly and more just sort of like picking up on the general ideas of Mothra,
Well, I think, to carry a conversation from the Mothra episode, I said you should listen to it. This is going to be informed by that. I think this movie is such a perfect example. If I understand how Hamish was describing the different kind of cinematic universe that these movies represent versus the modern version of a cinematic universe, I think this is a perfect example to illustrate that, because it's clear that people in the universe know about Mothra. It's clear that people in the universe know about Godzilla. It's clear that things have happened or that events have happened, but they don't have all the same characters. They don't even necessarily reference Mothra's attack, just that people know what Mothra is, or that Mothra is a legend people are aware of. So that movie directly impacts this movie. You almost, you could understand what's going on, but you'd be left with questions of, why does everybody know what Mothra is? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think this is such a perfect example of what he was trying to describe.
Yeah.
Clearly connected, but the direct sequel isn't necessarily as direct as you might expect now.
Yeah. Another thing from that David Kalat book is about how it relates to camp in a way that I've never thought about before. And this movie isn't super campy compared to like King Kong versus Godzilla, but it is campier compared to the original Godzilla, right?
Sure.
Like it's definitely in that direction. And I do think that the Godzilla movies are only going to get more and more campy throughout the Showa-era after this, arguably. But this is just so interesting to me. And I would have maybe mentioned this in another episode if this just happened to be in the Mothra versus Godzilla section.
Sure.
There's the section about camp that I think is really interesting because it relates it to this economic boom that was happening and another way that sort of affected the movie, right? So like, the book kind of talks about this idea that it's like if during a period of economic growth, there is a sense of like overflowing optimism, which means that like dark and scary monsters maybe don't have the same impact. But more than that, there's a quote from the book that says pop cultural anthropologists who study such things say that when societies undergo a rapid economic growth, generating vast pools of disposable wealth quickly without providing enough time for the overall culture to mature, the result is camp sensibility. And they compare it to like, in the 1960s, there was just a lot of camp across the board, right? In America, they cite like Batman. England, they cite like James Bond is when James Bond got really campy. In Japan, similar thing was happening. Japan had a huge boom happening. And that, of course, coincides with Godzilla kind of turning a little more towards camp. So almost like this idea that if you have a lot of optimism, that sort of like transitions into opulence in a certain way as an economy grows stronger, like the camp of the pop culture media is going to also grow at the same time.
I mean, I haven't thought about this before, but there's something about that I think makes sense if you present it as like the more optimism you have or the more success people are feeling collectively, the less likely you are to be cynical, I think. And I think you're more likely to be cynical in the opposite circumstances. And I don't think that sort of over the top caricature or like kind of extravagance necessarily are received as well by cynics or in a cynical sort of situation. I don't know. I don't know if that's true, but I could see where there might be a relationship to that.
Yeah. I think it all folds into this. Just, I think what the general idea behind this, a lot of the context of this movie is that it's just like, this is what a Godzilla movie looks like in a more optimistic time, I think. Like, you know,
I actually, I mean, it's fascinating you say all this because I walked away from the movie thinking like, this is actually like a pretty optimistic movie. Not that other ones haven't, but I feel like this is the most optimistic movie we've seen, with exception maybe to Mothra, because that's just almost the entirety of Mothra is like this sort of good feeling or build up to this sort of good feeling situation. But this might even be more so if you think about it.
There's a significant amount of darkness in Mothra with its villain, I think.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? And like nobody in this movie, like the villains of this movie are way less, I think, effective than Nelson was in Mothra, and less of a part of the movie and less of a point of the movie because Godzilla is here to be your big villain, but he's not a villain in a traditional sense. He's just a monster to be defeated, which automatically makes it a little bit less complex, you know?
But I think the fact that he almost exclusively accidentally destroys things and responds to things, I think the fact that sort of the main character of this movie is Mothra, who is simply helping and trying to retrieve what belongs to the people of the, like, so much of that is optimistic as opposed to sort of doom, gloom, sort of bleak, like any of those types of things. They just really don't make their way into this movie. Yeah, the worst thing is these not cartoonish villains, but these pretty tame villains for being the representation of like greedy capitalists, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Well, we were talking about Godzilla himself. You want to talk about this Godzilla suit?
Is this okay? I don't know why I thought, and maybe this is true, I thought this was the same suit as the previous movie. And then I saw it and I was like, I don't think this is it. So I don't know where I got that impression from, but I guess I'm glad, because I didn't love the King Kong versus Godzilla suit for certain reasons. And I think the things that I didn't like about it aren't present on this one.
Yeah.
Largely the face is better.
Oh, the face. Yeah, I think the face is much better. It's Mosa Goji, obviously Mothra Goji. Still portrayed by the same guy, portrayed by Haruo Nakajima again. Katsumi Tezuka is also credited as playing Godzilla at certain points in this movie. He's Anguirus and other monsters and stuff as well. So I think that they double teamed it. But Nakajima is still the main one. I mean, like I didn't really find really much about like specifically about the creation of this suit, other than like they just had to make another one because these suits get beat to hell, and they did, and they just sort of borrowed we'll talk about that. And they sort of borrowed some of the design elements from the King Kong version of the suit, and then, you know, kind of tweaked it and elevated it a bit. Like, you know, you have the very prominent brow on this Godzilla, and I think that brow makes such a huge difference. I think also I think it helps him look more menacing to if they want him to be the villain of this movie. You know?
Yeah, well, I'm so glad you mentioned the brow, because that's the thing that stood out to me so much, and I didn't go back to check. I really don't know why I had the impression that this was going to be the same suit. That's just like how I walked in expecting it to be, and it didn't look the same. So I was like, did they just update it or something? And the reason I thought that was because the brow was so different. Yeah. But yeah, by the end of it, I was like, this simply can't be the same suit. But
no.
For some reason, I walked in that way. So I was like looking for the things that felt really different kind of like immediately, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I read is interesting about this by this point, because Nakajima had played Godzilla so much, you know, at this point, when they designed the suit, like he would help them with the design by like putting on unfinished versions of them and like wrestling around in it to be like, okay, here's a weak area. This is going to cause problems. This is too stiff. This is going to break, which like going forward will help them be able to create suits that he can not only move around in better, but like that theoretically will last longer as they're getting beat all to hell in these movies.
Well, and one of my least favorite things about the immediately preceding suit was the way that it fit on his body. You know what I mean? So it makes a lot of sense that at some point you're going to consult the guy who's wearing it to be like, how does this feel and how do you move in it like you specifically?
Yeah, this is definitely one of my favorites, I think. Like it is very
really
high up there for me. It's really good. The face of it, when he does like the Kubrick stare, like the zoom in on his face and it's so good. It's so good. Yeah. It's a really, 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 really well done suit. Like definitely one of the best of this era for sure.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. I'm glad it's not the last suit.
Yeah. It was above 200 pounds. It would reach about 130 degrees under that suit.
I feel like I've been wanting to say this since the moment we started talking about the suit, but you just mentioned temperature, so I just have to.
Oh yeah. Oh, like I was setting up that transition.
This suit was straight up on fire at one point. The suit was on fire.
Can I tell you, Doug? Yeah, it was fire, but it was also on fire. That was not intentional. That was an accident.
I mean, that was my first question, because it seems absolutely like it's so
brutal.
dangerous. It's so dangerous. It's setting a it's okay. It's one thing to set a person on fire. The way you set that up is so specific and so careful and so like momentary. You know what I mean? You have like a bajillion people on hand to like make sure that even with the way you set like a stunt person on fire, nothing happens to them.
Yeah.
This person's in a 200-pound suit, like with very limited mobility and ability to see, and the suit is on fire. I couldn't believe it. I stopped and went back so many times to be like, this is really happening, right? This guy's head is on fire.
It's brutal. It's so brutal. Yeah, that was an accident. That wasn't supposed to happen, but Nakajima just like rolled with it. I mean, probably made no difference to him. He's like already
didn't notice right away.
Yeah. So they just kept it in because like he was still acting like Godzilla the whole time. Yeah, it's wild. It looks fucking incredible in the movie because it's like, oh, wow, that's a practical effect because it's not just on fire.
Right. It's really like, I mean, effective in the sense that it was shocking. It was really shocking.
Yeah. That's not the only notable accident. The other major accident in this movie, the bit when Godzilla is at the Nagoya castle and like trips, falls into it. He I'm assuming he was supposed to destroy it, but he wasn't supposed to just trip and fall into it first.
Really?
I think so.
Because it feels perfect for the movie they made. Yeah. Like he just like right before that got like stuck in a tower.
Now you're making me wonder if maybe either way, maybe if he was supposed to trip, I'm sure there's something, because once you destroy the building, like that's it. What wasn't supposed to happen? Maybe he was supposed to trip. I don't think he was supposed to trip at all. I think all of that was an accident. But no matter what, he wasn't supposed to smash his head into the building because he smashes his head so hard that it actually like fucked up the jaw of the suit, which is why like the upper jaw is like wobbling throughout pretty much the rest of the movie because of that.
But like, okay, here's the thing. Even before that, I noticed that the mouth felt really different. So it's almost, it's funny that it made it even wobblier because the mouth
it probably was shooting out of order. So that probably took place
true.
After, you know.
That makes sense.
But like, yeah, it crushed some of the teeth, I think, too. Like,
oh my gosh.
It totally fucked up. But Tsuburaya was like, this looks good though, so we'll keep it in. we'll repair it as best we can, but also like the wobble kind of works. It makes them look a little more alive. So
Sure.
I think they were happy to have the wobble throughout the movie too, because it doesn't look like a broken prop. It just looks like, I don't know, something else on a creature that's moving, you know?
I feel like, and I certainly don't have the expertise to make this statement, but I feel like I would much prefer repairing the like craggly monster guy than the like very sort of technically meticulous Japanese castle prop. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if there's truth to that, but I feel like people are less likely to notice that you had to repair something on the craggly monster than having to like glue together the castle you just messed up.
I love it. It's so fun. I mean, it's just wild. It's wild to hear these stories of just like how chaotic it was, you know?
Oh, it's so crazy. I mean, I know he continues to do Godzilla for a long time, right? So like, he's fine.
He's fine.
But it's just horrifying.
The suits aren't like those things. That's why these things. That's why, like, you know, they're not just like in a museum right now. It's because like those things were set on fire and thrown in water and just dissolved. Like these things were demolished by the end of it. You know.
Gosh.
This although this suit has, I will say, not to spoil too much or anything, but like the suit shows up in the next Showa-era movie. They did have to, I think, make a new head for it because they just demolished it and set it on fire in this movie. But like that's carried over, and like the suit itself too is used in the Ultra Q series, the series that like that was the predecessor to Ultraman. They use this suit for like, there's like a monster like famously looks exactly like Godzilla with a couple of extra like accoutrements on it. I think it was used for that monster, and then it's used for another monster as well, where they just swap out the heads. So like funny, as much as this one like again literally got set on fire, it was able to be like reused in other places after this movie, oddly enough.
Man, I
which
wonder
is not the case for other Godzilla suits.
Yeah, I wonder if I like accidentally came across that fact and just assumed it went in the other direction.
Maybe. Yeah. While we're talking about the monsters, Mothra, it's the same Mothra prop from the last movie. It's that the 10-foot Mothra marionette. Still the same one. The larva is a different story though. It's not it's not a dude in suits for most of it for this one. I'm sure they still have to do some puppet work for some of the scenes where they're living, but like when you actually see it moving, it's not the giant larva prop, for one, because there's two of them. But at this point they're actually like these mechanically fabricated, remote controlled things. Like you can kind of see sometimes when they're on wheels, but for the most part, I think they look really fucking cool.
Well, yeah, because they have a particular motion to their weird larval bodies that I think you are likely to pay more attention to than the bottom of it. You know, like if you're not specifically trying to figure out how it works, I think you're just noticing how it moves.
Yeah. But I mean, there's not really much more to say about it because we already talked about Mothra. Listen to our Mothra podcast.
Well, I do have a question though, because there is a point at which Mothra is dragging Godzilla, and it looks like that's a different Mothra and maybe a small model Godzilla or something. Do you know anything about like that particular scene?
Oh, I'm not exactly positive, but I know that this movie did use a lot more stop motion than has ever been in a Godzilla movie up to this point. So I think that they would have had to have built models for that. So there probably were smaller models that they built for those types of action scenes. For Mothra dragging Godzilla, I'm really not sure though.
Well,
because
there's multiple, like there's definitely sequences where it's the guy in the suit because of the way that Godzilla's reacting, right? Like you can tell that that's the full scale stuff. But there's one specific shot I'm thinking of that's like a further shot or a wider shot. And it just looks, I don't know, it looks more like a miniature thing, or like, and the Godzilla body's like not moving. So I just wasn't sure if it was, if you knew anything about that. It's barely used. And so I assume there must be a smaller Mothra. I feel like the Mothra is maybe a little bit plumper and its eyes are a little bit bluer, but who knows? That could be anything.
Yeah, you're probably right though. I missed that in my research. So I don't know if you're listening and you know a little more about how those scenes were made.
It's a really short thing, so it might. I mean, maybe it's not even a thing people talk about that much.
Yeah, right. I don't know. I would be very curious though. Yeah, I have plenty of other stuff about like effects and things, but I think that might come up as we're talking about like the plot and everything like that. Do you want to talk about some of the characters? Because I do think that the cast that we have is just unreal.
We have to.
Movie. Yeah.
Who's not in this movie? It's unbelievable. Like this is like an all-star cast, not in the sense that like they're all massive stars. That's not what I mean. It's like an all-star cast in that there's like literally someone from every movie that we've watched leading up to this movie. It's unbelievable.
Truly.
It's wild. Like, and it just people kept popping up, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I know this person. Why do I know this person? And it's because they were in 54, or they were in 55, or they were in Mothra just like a year ago. Like, it's wild. It's like
so fun.
Like the only person you don't see, or the only person you see like constantly who's not from a previous movie is basically Junko, right? Like, she's not in a movie we've seen before.
Yeah, right.
But every other guy is. There's a moment where there's 4 guys and Junko sitting around like a coffee table, and I was like, this is so weird. This is so weird. It's a bunch of protagonists or secondary characters from other Godzilla movies.
Yeah, it really is like the Avengers Endgame of Godzilla, except they're all just playing different characters. Right. It's so funny.
It's amazing. It's funny too seeing
so
like
much.
who ended up getting cast again, because you have Ogata, which he's one where I was like, I'm pretty certain I know this guy, and I didn't know it right away because it's like a decade after.
Yeah, and he's playing a very different character.
Very different character.
Ogata, yeah.
I mean, Tsukioka's actor, I mean, I'll recognize him all the time.
Hiroshi Koizumi. And that one's a funny case too, because it's like, he's not really any different than his character in Mothra was. He's another hot professor. That's why I think I really do. It's my conspiracy. Nothing is confirmed, but other people have also proposed that it's a possibility. Especially because like Akira Takarada's character's last name is Sakai, which Frankie Sakai played the journalist in last movie. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was sort of just their internal little joke where like they did originally want to bring over, and maybe there's the only person they could get from Mothra was Koizumi. So they're sort of like, well, then we'll just recast all of them, you know, because the trifecta is exactly the same. Like you could in this movie, like if you slotted the Mothra characters in, it wouldn't change anything because this trio meets the Shobijin so early in the movie and are immediately just like, yeah, okay, Mothra sounds cool. We'll help you out. Like, if it was the characters from Mothra, just meeting them again, you would barely have to tweak anything for the same movie to happen, you know?
Yeah, I think the big difference is, like, Ichiro's super different than
he's
Frankie
a different
Sakai's
character.
Like, but the dynamic is very much the same. When I didn't know if characters from Mothra were going to be carried over or not.
Yeah.
I figured it was a possibility, but not necessarily likely. So when they started putting names up there, I was like, Frankie Sakai, I want to see your name. I want you back. I want you in this movie. But he was not. I'm totally cool to get, Koizuma though, or Koizumi.
Koizumi.
Because I'll watch him in anything.
Yeah. I mean,
but also, from King Kong versus Godzilla, Kenzaburo was one of my favorite characters in that. Dude. And I feel like we didn't necessarily talk about Kenzaburo that much because he
didn't have much to do.
Right. But I had a soft spot for him. Like, he was one of my favorite characters on that cast. So, but I wasn't expecting to see him again because he didn't have a huge role in there.
And I'm so glad we get to see him again because he really was like under not, he was
I believe what I said was those two characters don't need to be two characters, and as much as I like Kenzaburo, he probably could have just not been in the movie. Or I said something to that effect.
Sorry. I'm getting I'm getting confused now. Kenji Sahara played Fujita in King Kong versus Godzilla.
Yes.
And he's the villain. And Yu Fujiki plays Nakamura, who's the egg-eating reporter who was Kenzaburo in King Kong versus Godzilla.
Sorry, that's who I was talking about.
But it's the case for both of them, though, because both of those are actors that were in King Kong versus Godzilla that were like, they interacted and stuff. But I think we complain a lot about that movie that like neither of them really get enough to do in that movie because so much is happening in that movie, right? And I'm so glad for both of them that we get to like see both of them show up in this movie and get to do something different. And like both of them stand out in such wildly different ways, like I'm so glad we get to see them again, doing different things and being like, cool. Now I can distinctly see you all as some different characters from this movie that King Kong versus Godzilla had such a homogenous cast, you know?
Yeah, totally. I mean, Jiro is like a weird egg-eating guy who probably also didn't need to be in this movie, but I liked him again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, the editor was like a general in a former movie, right? The newspaper editor?
Yes. He was in King Kong versus Godzilla as well as the general.
It's wild. It's just wild.
Yeah.
So many people.
Yeah.
It just didn't stop. And I probably missed people. I wouldn't even be surprised if there were like smaller people. Because like people just kind of show up sometimes, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah. The guy who plays Kumiyama, Yoshibumi Tajima, I would have expected him to be in bigger roles. And he's also another one you might have just like coincidentally recognized. He's never played a big role in another Godzilla movie. This is his biggest one, but he's in Mothra, he's in King Kong vs. Godzilla, he's in the Return of Godzilla, always in like smaller roles like a boat captain or like a military person or a minister. Like you would probably recognize his face even if you didn't remember where you knew him from.
Right. He has a distinct look, so I'm sure I could pick him out, you know. But yeah, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's not even just like random appearances of them or like little cameos. It's like the cast. The cast is just a bunch of people from other movies. It's wild. Sorry, we haven't even like talked about characters.
That's okay.
I just was like so amazed at how many of these people I knew.
But the other reason I think I was getting confused between the two King Kong vs. Godzilla actors that are both in this movie playing like better roles, I feel like, was because both of them were named Jiro something.
I
like
know.
Their characters.
That's so weird.
Weird choice. Like, I don't understand that. That confused me in my notes too. Was like, wait, he's Jiro. Wait, no.
Which Jiro?
He's Jiro Nakamura versus Jiro Torihata. Is he the good guy? Is he the egg guy or is he the bad guy?
Yeah.
Which one is he? So yeah. You are mostly talking about the Kinzaburo guy. I did want to talk about Kenji Sahara as Jiro Torihata. That was what I wanted to bring up because I do have a lot of interesting stuff about him because it is actually like, even in the context of this time, this was actually a weird role from him specifically because he was actually playing against type. The way that we saw him as Fujita in King Kong vs. Godzilla as just like one of the many just hot guys in the movie, that normally is the type of character that he would play. And he specifically wanted to do this. And he thought it would be a big chance to play like a really good, fun villain. And like to the point where he's like, he apparently like spent a bunch of time around like really pushy real estate agents. He would pose as a buyer and find the most annoying real estate agents just to research them. So then he could imitate the supreme self-confidence, quote unquote, of real estate agents who he felt like represented like a symbol of greed. Funny enough. It's so fucking funny.
Remember one movie ago when somebody was instructed to research gorillas and just didn't? And this guy's like going undercover to like study real estate agents.
Yeah. It's
like
so
probably of his own accord.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was apparently his idea too, or like, I guess his and Honda's together. Like he was really in favor of like, I need my face to I need to get beat the fuck up, get so bloody,
dude,
and then die. And Honda was like, "Are you sure you want to get a bloody nose? Like you'll ruin your cool guy image." Like that's an exact quote from Honda. And but Sahara was like, "Fuck no, I want to get bloody as hell, man." I think he was really into the idea of playing a villain in this movie, and he has a lot of fun with it. Clearly,
yeah. Kenji Sahara is the one that it took me the longest to figure out. Or like be confident that I knew him because he looks pretty different, if only because he has these glasses on that kind of obstruct like his look or like change his look in a really particular way because they're like tinted glasses. But the reason I even thought so was when he is introduced, Kumiyama comes into the room and is talking to Torihata for like several lines before they reveal who Torihata is. And you can kind of chalk it up to the fact that Ichiro is like, I got to figure out who this guy is. Like, he's a mystery to me. But really, it felt more like they were revealing the actor. And I took a note of that. So then I watched it. I actually watched this twice. But when I watched it the second time, I was reminded like, oh shit, that's right. I got to look up if I'm supposed to know this guy because that reveal was so outside of the universe that it has to
Yeah.
be somebody.
Yeah. It's so funny to see something like that in a movie like this, where like we have such a lot less context than the audience who was watching it would have at the time. Like
Yeah.
to see that and and I'm sure that there are other probably things like that like you might not notice, but like the fact that it's so clear when you watch this movie, like that's supposed to mean something to me, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, because it's people would know this actor from other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny. It's also interesting too, because like this character, this is something I'm sure we will. I mean, we could talk about it now, or we can get into it as we talk more about plot stuff. But like, this character wasn't even originally in the script. Like originally, this sort of capitalist side that was like Honda really wanted to press adding to the script, like this idea of like a theme being the social contract among all people, like this brotherhood of man idea, which is very present in the original Mothra movie, but I guess maybe wasn't as present in this script. That was probably a little more just about Godzilla attacks and they have to get Mothra over to help. And Honda's like, we need to add this angle of like having like you end up having a contrast of like your good characters versus your capitalist characters that makes it harder for the infant islanders to trust the good characters, because it's sort of like we literally have an example of these bad guys who won't fucking let us have our egg back. So why would we trust you? And then having to just be like, well, you know, maybe all people have a right to live, et cetera, that we can, you know, talk about how that plays or not. But like that stuff is all a Honda addition, which I just think is very interesting that like, not only is this sort of like a thing that was kind of for this actor to do something different, it also was just a separate thing added that wasn't originally part of the story in the first place, you know?
I mean, I think it's a good part. I think it's a good element of the movie. Like, I think it is a strong element of the movie. I'm glad it's there. Yeah. But I can see, if only from the just like structure of the characters and relationships and stuff, I can see this movie without Torahata. Like,
oh yeah,
because Kumayama is more similar to Tako was, that over the top character, like over the top villain from King Kong versus Godzilla. Kumayama is like more over the top than Torahata. Torahata is like a calm, cool, collected like guy at the top, you know? And Kumayama is like his, I don't know, like, like I keep thinking like Hammerhead is to, you know, Kingpin or whatever. But I think Kumayama could have carried as a villain, if only because he's kind of cartoonish.
Yeah. And I'm not really sure. Like, I'm not really sure what. Like, that's something that I didn't read the original script. I don't know if you can, but it was just, you know, based on what I was reading. I'm actually unclear on like, if they cut out Torahata, like is Kumayama also gone? And then in which case, what, like who is, but somebody somebody has to be holding the egg hostage, right? So like, I feel like there's got to be, if it's not Kumayama exactly, then there's got to be some sort of something. Maybe it's just it was a vaguer, not as explicit like capitalist villain in that version or something.
Yeah,
like that.
I think it just ends up being a less layered interrogation of capitalism, because I think Kumayama still can be holding the egg hostage, and the relationship between him and the people he owes money, right? Yeah. I think that ends up getting stressed more, and his downfall ends up being, you know, holding this egg hostage and promising all these things to all these people and not being able to actually deliver on the promise when even the slightest thing goes wrong in his gross capitalist plan, you know?
Right.
Like, I think that's sort of where, I mean, in a similar fashion to Mothra's villain sort of being like devoured by the people in the end, I feel like that's probably what I would have imagined for Kumayama had Torahata not been there.
Yeah. And either way, I think you can sort of see structurally in terms of the narrative that like it does, when you know that they were a slight, like probably not a late addition, but like weren't originally part of the original outline and original script for it. Like they do exit the story very like relatively early, considering they're sort of presented as the main villains. Once Godzilla shows up, it's sort of like, well, they're not really the villains that we care about anymore. And then they're just sort of like axed and like kind of halfway through and then forgotten, like never mentioned again.
Yeah. So Kumayama like confidently was not part of the original script.
I don't know.
Oh,
for
okay,
sure.
gotcha.
I just know that it was the
Torahata
capitalist
for sure.
villain. Torahata for sure wasn't originally part of it. Yeah,
I have
at
a
least
really
not in
hard
the capacity.
I have a really hard time imagining it without like both of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
Or
mean,
at least one of them, rather.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know that there were some other significant differences in the script and stuff like that. I think there's even a weird idea where, I don't know. I feel like I read somewhere that was like Godzilla is the one who washes ashore, is like asleep, and that's the one who's going to be a theme park attraction. But then he wakes up. But I just don't understand how that's even the same movie though, because like you need the egg in there somewhere.
Yeah,
so
I don't understand how
know.
that would intersect with Mothra. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that as a starting point though, considering
fun,
their
I know.
go-to for the past 2 movies is just throw them in the ocean.
Right. It's of course you're gonna wash ashore one day. Yeah, I know. I feel like we approached all of this very chaotically. Part of that's my fault, and part of it's because there's a million cast members that are just the biggest actors ever. Are there other character stuff you want to talk about before we move along to other things?
I don't think so. I mean, I do think the big impact on this cast is that you know so many of them.
Yeah.
I don't know that the characters they're playing are specifically memorable beyond that, right? So like Ichiro is a good character. I like him a lot. But I don't know that he stands out as like one of my lead men, you know, that I'm going to remember for a long time. I mean, Junko, they don't do nearly anything with her, especially compared to her photographer predecessor in Mothra.
I like the idea of a news photographer who really loves the art of it all and like takes forever to get shots and like looks for beauty, and then in looking for beauty accidentally finds things that are like really relevant to the plot. Like I like that idea a lot,
and that does distinguish her from her photographer predecessor, right? Because that photographer was, I think you compared her to Lois Lane, right? Like
she's actually a good
story,
photographer,
right?
Yeah,
she moves things along because she is insistent on getting the scoop. But Junko's distinguished in that she is like an art photographer. Yeah. And I think there's a lot they could have played with, but I think once they got there sort of like, she's an art photographer and she stumbled across this discovery, which happened so early in the movie.
Yeah. She really doesn't have anything else to do other than just kind of hang out with them for the rest of the movie, which is a bummer, because I think I like the actor has a good energy. I like that they don't just try to push a romance on it with her. Like it very easily could have been her and Ichiro having a romance, and that's not at all. He's just like her boss basically. The whole movie.
Totally.
But yeah, she is just kind of unfortunately just the pretty lady dragged along along this chaos.
Yeah. And then like I said, Jiro Nakamura is just the egg guy. And I like him because I, for some reason, really like this guy, but he's not like essential. He's just a little bit of comic relief here and there.
Yeah, but I do like how they use him though, because the egg jokes is funny that it's a guy who eats eggs a lot, as this movie with a giant egg in it. Funny. Great joke. But also like he's the one who keeps coming up with like ideas and stuff. Like he's the one who comes up with the idea of like, why don't we just ask Mothra to help? Like she seems cool.
That's a good point. That's a good point actually, because like I think the sort of simpleness might be more insulting than I mean for it to be. I think is good to have, if only because like everybody else is like played pretty seriously, you know what I mean? And so having somebody who can kind of cut that every once in a while, like in this cast, I think is valuable. But I think it makes sense that the simple suggestions, the sort of like obvious ones that people are overthinking past, would come from that guy.
Yeah. No, I like
guy
that a lot.
who's like head empty except for egg, you know?
I think that's a fun angle to have a character play, especially, and I think it does sort of differentiate it because he's not part of the main trifecta, but he also like doesn't need to be, because he's not there for the action. He's there for like the weird observations that give them ideas to do heroic things.
And he's not obnoxious, like
he's
I
great.
Like, he's not even really cartoonish. He's like a pretty regular person who just is a little bit of an airhead who loves eggs.
Yeah.
And then the professor is great. What is it, Miura? He's good.
Yeah,
I'll remember him. He's the lead man I'll remember from this movie. And I think I would, even if he weren't played by one of the hottest men alive.
And of course we have the Peanuts returning as the Shobijin.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I listened back to that Mothra episode and realized like we literally never call them the Shobijin, which is like that is their official name. I think that I forget that. I think that's like a term that was coined for the movie that is essentially like meaning like little fairies or whatever. Essentially,
Yeah.
that is their name. We just always call them little ladies and priestesses the entire
I was
time.
going to say, I
is
think
very
we
funny.
mostly just called them priestesses, which is like,
Yeah.
is
It
what they
works.
are. You know?
It's just funny that like,
Yeah.
oh, I totally forgot to even like mention that that's what their name
Yeah.
is. So that is what they're called, but they're the little ladies and the priestesses, and they're back. I love their outfits in this movie so much.
Yeah.
And I also like that they're not just kidnapped again. I love that they are just part of the plot.
Yeah.
They get 2 more musical numbers in this movie. Both of them are songs that Ifukube did for it. Yeah. Remember, like he was sort of like, I don't know if I want to
Yeah. What changed?
do these pop songs, but then but it's a Godzilla movie. He's doing the score and it's
yeah.
actually I can do it. But also if you listen to it, so he does the Sacred Springs, a Mothra song. And like both of those are much more, I don't know, they're a lot like sadder and more contemplative than I feel like the original Mothra song was.
I know it's interesting that he was intimidated to do music for them because I feel like these 2 songs are kind of like perfect for their vibe. Even
They're
more.
really
I mean,
good.
Mothra's theme is perfect for Mothra. You know what I mean? But I feel like the songs he wrote for the what are they called?
Sacred Springs and Mothra.
No, not the priestesses. I should call them by their actual name.
The Shobijin.
The Shobijin. I feel like the 2 songs he wrote were perfect for the Shobijin. You know what I mean? Like Mothra's theme is perfect for Mothra. These are perfect for them. So it's so strange that he felt so intimidated. But this guy's also like, this is the guy that's like a musical genius who was sort of like, but maybe I won't do music. Oops, I guess I'll do music, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, whatever, dude.
But
you're freaking good at things, okay?
yeah, it's just it's so hard being such a genius. The Sacred Spring song, especially, it's such a short song. It's so good. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Like it's so beautiful. And that's one that's like, it's not even really necessary in the movie. It's totally just there for the vibes.
Yeah.
And I love it so much. And it's so impactful. Like I like that, you know, they were a necessary sort of plot device in a solo Mothra movie. The Shobijin were, obviously, because it all predicated on them getting kidnapped. In this movie, it's just sort of like they really are just fulfilling their roles as being these sort of communicators for Mothra, and the people who like do, you know, unlike a lot of the other Infant Islanders who are just for good reason fucking hate everyone outside of their island at this point. Right. They are the ones who are sort of like, no, but we recognize there's some good people though. We get it. But we also do what we got to do. You know, they fulfill that role really well as sort of being the connective tissue between the island and Japan.
Well, I think that, and this isn't, I think they were great in Mothra. I liked them a lot, but I think this movie maybe does a better job of allowing them to be like characters within the story.
Absolutely.
You know, like as horrifying as it is in Mothra and this one that they are treated like objects, the Mothra movie does, as far as what their purpose is in the movie, treat them a little bit more like objects, you know, as opposed to like, we have a personality and we're interacting with people and we're sharing some sort of opinion or we're taking sort of initiative to do this thing. This movie, they're all those things, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's absolutely. Great. Absolutely. Yeah. I like it a lot. I think it's really, I think they're really well utilized in this movie.
Also the scene in, I think it's Torahata's office or room or whatever, where the Shobijin are like running away from the 2 villains. Yeah. Everything in that looks incredible. I don't understand really like what's different, because like we're sort of in the period where composite shots don't look amazing all the time because, you know, they have the color kind of gives it away. They looked a little bit better in black and white.
Yeah, there's some real rough shots in this movie,
including some with the Shobijin, right? Yeah. But for some reason, and I don't know if it's because they just had the ability to make like the perfect minimal set piece for them, but they looked integrated into that space the whole time they were in there. Well, it was amazing. I don't know what they did.
They did some practical stuff.
They had to
in this one. I think that they really did, as far as I can tell, they really did build sets for them that were like to scale so that they could run around like in what looks like a big couch and then shoot it at like a low angle. and to make it look like they're small. Like they did like Honey I Shrunk the Kids stuff with them.
They had
which
to
is so
have.
funny because that scene is so short. Like
Right.
you don't need to see that, but I mean, it feels like Subaraya like experimenting because it looks so incredibly good. Like it looks like they are capitalizing on like Incredible Shrinking Man types of techniques for them in this movie. That they did not do in the Mothra movie originally.
Right. The only reason I wasn't confident that they were doing a bunch of practical stuff is because it seems so absurd for them to do that for such a short sequence. But I mean, if you present it as sort of like this is almost like an experiment or like a proof of concept in a series that hasn't done this yet, because they didn't do any of this with them in Mothra, then I guess it makes a lot more sense. You know, it's like another tool you're adding to your belt moving forward.
Yeah, well, I feel like there's a lot of things like that in this movie that are like very small, subtle, brief things that are like, oh, I've never seen that in a Godzilla movie before. Like there's that stuff with the Showa-vision. There's like more like stop motion and like sort of strobe type things that they use in this movie during some of the Mothra fights. Like there's like a lot that they do with when Mothra is attacking Godzilla's head and is like clawing at his head. It feels like it's like overcranked in the way that like Raids Again was, except utilized in a good way. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I feel because it's chaotic and it looks like what it would feel like to have a bug or a bird like clawing at your face furiously.
For me, it's hit or miss because in those types of sequences, when Mothra is attacking his head, it's like frantic, right? It's like his reaction to it. But there's a moment in this where he falls. And it feels like Anguirus falling. And I was like, what happened here? Like, what's going on here?
Sure.
Or later where one of the larvae is attached to his tail, like bites his tail and is attached to his tail. That's another one where I was like, why haven't we slowed this down? Like it feels a little too fast for what's going on.
Sure.
So for me, it's not a total miss like it was in I just called it the whole movie Anguirus in Raids Again. But there were still some moments where I was like, I don't love this choice.
Fair.
Him swatting though works. The swatting that was fine. That doesn't need to be slowed down. That should be fast.
Yeah, and I think I think it still just speaks to like even this sort of late into. I mean, I know like comparatively it's not late into the life of Godzilla, but like for like these sort of special effects Toho movies, it's been a decade that these have been being made, and Subaraya is still clearly finding ways to experiment even in places where like he doesn't really need to be, but he still clearly is trying to do different things whenever possible. And I appreciate that a lot. I think that's really cool.
Totally. Yeah.
I guess while we're talking about special effects, I'll be curious if like you notice this.
Okay.
So the scene on Infant Island, when they do go to Infant Island, originally Honda did want to show more, just like with Mothra, like he wanted to show more on that island. You know, when the original Mothra, he wanted to show like a really weird kind of lush island. In this one, he really wanted to visualize more of like the aftermath of the atomic bomb.
Oh yeah,
because there's like a little bit of atomic bomb stuff in this movie, right? They reference that Infant Island was bombed by it, and that's a main reason the islanders are angry, is that their island is devastated because of the atomic bomb testing that happened on or around their island. And he really wanted to show a little more of that graphically. I don't know exactly what that would have meant, but he wanted to show more of the devastation, right? And instead all we really get is they show up on the beach and they see like a couple of skeletons, and that's where it stops. Did you notice that one of that there's a whale skeleton sitting there? This is like a turtle skeleton that's just bobbing its head the entire time.
Derek, it's literally all I could see. It's literally the only thing I could look at.
How could you not?
Because in a movie like this, or any movie, like not specifically this one, but in any given movie that's using special effects and has an element of sci-fi and all this sort of stuff, it wasn't, is that turtle moving? It's, is that skeleton turtle alive? Is that what I'm supposed to be like? Because it's instant, like they land on there and it starts moving. So it's reasonable to assume that turtle is alive, even though it looks dead as hell.
It's so funny. I mean, the obvious answer is that it wasn't supposed to be, but like it was, it was a cheap prop, but they didn't have time to reshoot it or whatever. Like it was all money. But what's so funny is that like, you can't not notice that, and you're looking for monsters in a monster movie. Right. So it's like became such a basically a meme in the whole history of Godzilla, like of people just being like, it's the Skeleturtle. We're just going to call it the Skeleturtle and say it's
hell
kaiju
yeah.
now. That eventually Toho is just sort of like, fine, it's official. And they named it officially. It's depending on where you look, it's either Mystery Bones or Mysterious Bones is its name.
God.
And there's even like a figure that they released of it.
I need it. This is the closest I'm going to get to Bones Godzilla is the fucking Skeleturtle. Holy shit. Whoa. This is the best thing ever. Wow.
It's so good. I love that shit, man.
Wow.
It's
Damn.
like, and it's like, that's why instead of like, just like nitpicking movies and saying that they're bad when you see a mistake, you could just embrace the mistake for the fun of it.
Yeah.
And make a thing out of it. And then suddenly you've got a brand new monster that's like kind of canon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I did, I mean, I noticed the turtle obviously, but I noticed that the presentation of Infant Island was definitely different as they land there. They really do stress like this is they have been decimated, you know. And there's only this really small portion of the island that they're even sort of existing in, plus this little like tiny lush area where the Shobijin seem to reside.
Yeah.
Also, the inhabitants of Infant Island, once again, treated with immense respect, maybe even more so than in Mothra.
I think so.
I think the way that they're presented is great as far as like characters and as a civilization. And there is less painting of bodies, but it's not totally gone. And not that there's a good way to like darken the skin of actors for the sake of darkening their skin.
Right.
It's almost, I had to pay a lot of attention to figure out, are they doing special effects makeup or are they painting bodies brown? And I think they're doing both, and there just aren't as many people painted brown as there were in previous movies. So
I think so.
All in all, a little bit more comfortable. And they just, I don't know, they were like more characters there. Not that there were a ton, but like you get to talk with the leader of the Infant Island people, and he's referenced back, you know, or at least they show him back a few times.
Fucking love him. I fucking love like the chief leader guy of Infant Island. He's so fucking good because he's so angry, like justifiably. He's so angry at them, and I just fucking love that these people just show up and ask him for a favor after they, you know, they acknowledge it, right? Like,
oh, Ichiro is specifically like, I can't do that. We totally shut them down. You think they're going to help us?
Yeah, that's specific. That's the thing about this movie. We're all over the place with this one, but it's like a major part of this movie is sort of like they can't get the capitalists to return Mothra's egg to Infant Island, but then when Godzilla shows up, they have to like deal with the shame of being like, we've still got to ask him for a fucking favor, even though they're rightfully angry with us. Like, why? How could we possibly do this? And they show up, and the Islanders are like, fuck y'all, get out of here.
I love it. I know it's not what we are ultimately supposed to take away from the movie. It's not ultimately what the movie's about, but I love that it's in there. I love that not just the Infant Island people, but also the Shobijin initially are like, no, you don't deserve our help. Like, what? It's ridiculous you're even coming here to ask, you know?
Yeah.
Specifically because of what you recently did and because of what was done to our island. It's not like what you did is specific and what outsiders in general did. It's macro and micro, and it feels so like they have every right to just be like, get out of here. Like, we don't want anything to do with you. You've only ever brought us trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that stuff a lot. And I guess the other thing that Junko does get to do in the movie is like, she is kind of the one that like has the speech that convinces everyone to let Mothra help them.
Yes.
Of sort of instating this idea of like, we're all equal before God's eyes or whatever, you know.
She got two things.
She got two. Yeah. Also, she got two.
Yeah.
things.
No, they have a right to be angry for sure. And I'm glad that it's there and it's represented. But like the movie's about something else, and what the movie's about is good, you know?
Yeah. And they really do have to work to get to that point.
Yeah.
Of working together.
And the movie has so much to do with trust that like it fits perfectly for them to be uneasy about trusting these people or agreeing to their terms, you know? So like it wouldn't, talking about trust at all wouldn't make sense if they just immediately were like, yeah, we'll help.
Right.
Like if,
trust takes work and it takes time.
Right.
Yeah,
it's not about
right.
the movie's not about forgiveness. It's about trust, you know?
Right. This is a little bit weird because usually we'll save some of like the dub talk maybe for a little bit later, but before we actually talk more about plot stuff, because I'm pretty much done with the production stuff on my end, I do want to talk a little bit about the dub of this movie specifically because we got a really, really nice couple of emails from a listener.
Ooh.
It's a worthwhile perspective that we don't have on the podcast between the two of us. So this is from Robert. I'll read the opening just because it's very nice. He says, "Hi, Derek and Doug. Every once in a while I go looking for new Godzilla podcasts. It seems odd to say, but most of the ones I found spent a lot of time knocking down these great movies instead of building them up. I love pretty much all of the Godzilla movies, obviously some more than others, but if I listen to a podcast about something I like, well, I generally want to hear what others like too. And if you could put a queer angle on that and mention some of the good looking guys we've had in some Godzilla movies over the years, well, then all the better." He says, "I'm loving the fresh take and also that it's always fun to hear Doug's predictions for the next movie."
Oh, I'm glad people like that.
Yeah. So thank you for that. Very much appreciated. But the reason I bring this up here is because I appreciate his perspective that he's coming from, because he talks about, he told me about how like he grew up in the 70s, like, you know, catching these movies on like local channels. Obviously you're only going to be seeing the dubs when you're watching the movies in the 70s. Right. He says, I remember so many Friday nights sitting up to watch Godzilla versus the Smog Monster till 4 a.m. Which we'll get to that one eventually, Doug.
Smog Monster.
Yep.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Oh, it's a fantastic movie. You're going to love it. He says, I'll mention one thing, though, as this seems to pervade in fandom these days. Even you have mentioned silly dubs from time to time. Honestly, other than a couple of the dubs, most of them are more than acceptable. There's a lot of feelings in fandom that the subtitles give a better translation of the actual Japanese dialogue. But if you take a very close look, it's about 50-50 for bad subs and 50-50 for silly dubs. I always prefer the dubs. He says it's what I'm more used to, and also finds reading the subtitles take my eyes off of the acting, direction, and overall imagery. But I get that some people prefer the subtitles. All I'd ask is that you treat the dubs with a little respect. And he actually goes on to talk a lot about some of like the various differences in other dubs, some of things we'll get into. The reason I'm bringing this up here is because like this movie is an instance of like an interesting middle ground, because the dub of this movie, I watched it. It is a good dub, like especially, you know, for a movie from that was made in the 60s. Like it's probably about as good of a dub as you can get. And even then, there are still some changes. Like they keep things pretty consistent with what we would have seen in the subtitles.
Yeah.
There's like a little bit of tweaks. Like there's some scenes that are rearranged and cut down a little bit, but it's very minor. The main thing is that they did film an extra sequence specifically for American audiences only, which is a sequence where like the US Navy attacks Godzilla with some missiles. But what's cool about and I watched it, like it's fine. It doesn't add much, but doesn't take anything away either. But what's cool is that Sekizawa wrote the scene, Tsuburaya filmed it.
Oh.
So it's still made by the creators of this movie just
That's
for
really
an
cool.
American audience. Yeah. And like the whole Godzilla versus the Thing title doesn't even really like they call Mothra the Thing sometimes, but they also call her Mothra at the same time. It was absolutely
Still
just
respectful.
It was absolutely just a marketing stunt.
Yeah.
Specifically so they could like make posters where it's like Godzilla versus the Thing. What is it? Nothing like you've ever seen on screen before. And then show like a tentacle monster with censored over top of the monster. It's very silly. It was all a marketing ploy.
Sure.
Otherwise, it's a very good dub. So just to what Robert was talking about, it's funny. I have just been very like, whatever, the dubs are bad, but like, that's not really the case. There's absolutely a place for the dubs and many of them are good.
No, I'm glad to hear this. It's actually validating, I think, because the one time I did watch both the Japanese with subtitles and the English dub was Godzilla 2000, right? And I remember there were certain things about the subtitled version I liked, but it wasn't the subtitles. And often I found the dub to make more sense in what it was trying to communicate, and the way that they either better translated or just better interpreted what they were trying to convey, right? So it's actually that actually makes me feel better about what I walked away from Godzilla 2000 with, which was that sort of like sometimes the re-edit might actually like they might have an advantage in being able to look at once more over, you know?
Well, he also gave a good point in one of his emails too that I never really thought about, but that's totally real. Like, just like with dubs, you're sometimes going to get, depending on who's subtitling the
that's
movie
a
you're
huge
watching,
thing, too.
it's going to be different, right?
And where you find it might not be an official sub.
Exactly, which we've run into where like you weren't even sure if you watched like a fan sub or an official sub, and even then it's like depending on like, did this DVD use this sub or did another company sub it? Criterion like did their own subtitles for the Showa-era movies, and he brings up like the Criterion subtitles. They're good, but they also try to skinny them down and make them as short as possible. So like they try to get just like the sentence to get the main idea across in as few words as they can, which is like good, and he acknowledges like that's good for slower readers, but it doesn't mean it's as accurate of a translation if you're just trying to keep it short, right? And with a dub, you obviously have the advantage that it's all audio, so like as long as it fits the mouth as well as you can, like you can kind of rearrange it in a way that like presents what you're trying to say in possibly a better way,
Yeah.
Like I feel like, I've had many conversations with people where it's sort of like, I just can't do the dubs because I don't feel like it's going to be an accurate portrayal of what the characters are, what the characters are saying, or like what the original actors are doing. And like that can be true in some cases.
But if you don't know Japanese, you don't know that that's true of the subs.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I think that's it's a really good thought. I mean, I my intention is that unless I don't have time for all the movies going forward, I'll try to watch the dub and the sub both before podcasts, because some movies I've only seen the dub, some movies I've only seen the sub, some I've seen both, because it is fun sometimes to compare, and when it's a good dub, it's like, okay, it's fine, and but when it is a bad dub, it's interesting to see like, oh, what did they do differently? Or even if it's a good dub, what did they do differently? Also, this was so helpful to me. This is not really relevant to this conversation, really.
Okay.
But I still thought that to this movie, I should say.
Okay.
But it is relevant to the dub conversation, because one of the things that I brought up that will come up as we move along is like, Pluto TV is a really great way to access these movies, but like it's confusing because sometimes they only have dubs and sometimes they only have subs. But he said like the issue is that like almost all these movies have a Toho International English dub that were recorded in Hong Kong, and those are usually considered pretty poor in comparison. Like those are usually the kind of bad dubs. And a lot of the better English dubs that were maybe actually made by a separate American production company, those aren't available on streaming sites often, because Toho probably is sort of like feeling like it runs into a sort of legally ambiguous area. So Pluto TV is only going to have the Hong Kong international dubs that Toho owns, which ergo probably some of the ones that I've watched on Pluto, I'm like, are the Hong Kong dubs that I think are bad, that probably aren't very good, but there are actually English dubs that people grew up with that they have seen that are actually probably pretty good, but aren't as accessible because Toho doesn't technically own those.
This person's name was Robert, right?
Yes.
This is the good shit, Robert. This is like, I don't think, despite maybe the conversation specifically that we've had about Godzilla dubs, I don't think you would find that Derek and I are particularly pretentious about the sub versus dub situation. But when people are talking about dubs, this is the stuff I want, right? Like I want to know, like, there are some that are great, and I don't want to miss out on those simply because I'm being pretentious over here about my sub. So this is fantastic. This is all like incredible stuff for us to know.
It was so interesting. I was so pleased to read that email. When you open up an email on your podcast account and it's like really long,
you just never know.
It's like, oh no, who's going to tell me everything I've ever said wrong in the entire history of the podcast? So this was actually, but this was so cool to hear. Cause I mean, it is, I mean, genuinely, like, this is not a thing that I know much about at all. Cause I've seen the movies I've seen in whatever form I've seen them in.
Well, sure.
And the whole history of dubbing Godzilla movies for over 70 years, obviously, is a really complex one. So it's really cool to hear from people who are very knowledgeable and have so much experience with that.
Well, because even now, like, I'm watching these all for the first time, right? You would think that watching them all for the first time in 2024, I wouldn't run into the same problem. And it's not the same problem, But you would think it would be easy to find whatever version I want to watch, whether it's this dub, that dub, or this sub, or this person's.
Right.
Like, it's really not. It's been a challenge sometimes. And it's just like, whatever version I can get is the version I'm going to watch, which I think is what happened with that Godzilla 2000 one I watched. I think that's where I wasn't confident I was watching an official sub.
Right.
But I would want to know, and I still don't even know. So I don't know. It's a whole thing that I feel like everybody is sort of on the journey encountering this, and I feel like we all could be a little bit more understanding of like, this is just how I got it, guys. This is the one that I could watch.
It's funny, not to go too off topic with it, but I literally, as of this recording, like this morning, I was recording a podcast about Dragon Ball Z, which also and we had a whole conversation about the many different. Are you watching this dub? Are you watching this dub with the Toonami music? Are you watching this dub with the original Japanese music? Which theme song do you have? Like, it's also wildly different, And I remember David on that episode was just like, this feels even more inaccessible to me because it feels like I'm never going to watch it the correct way. And the truth is, like, there is no correct way. It's like you watch it however you watch it, really. Yep. Like, that ultimately is the case, because unless you are a Japanese speaker who was watching it as it was airing originally, like, you're never going to be going into it with the exact correct context,
I'm just thankful I can watch them at all. So whether it's a dub or a sub, I'm just thankful I get to enjoy it,
Yeah.
That's again, where I land.
Isn't to say there aren't some notoriously bad dubs that maybe you should avoid when you get to those movies.
Sure.
But they're like far and few between, probably comparatively.
If it were the only way I could watch it, I'd still be thankful. This was like a whole thing. I remember, like, it's still a thing. There are some people who like won't watch certain subtitlers, and I'm like, but then are you just not going to watch it? Like, I still want to watch the story,
Yeah.
But they won't watch it because they don't. And then whatever, people can do whatever they want. But
but sometimes you can, like, getting the gist is like, you can get enough of the gist to still be invested.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Godzilla movies ever, which we'll get to eventually, maybe in a year or 2 years during this podcast, like, is one that I first watched it dubbed, and I think it was a Hong Kong dub that wasn't very good, and I still cried at that movie like 3 times. Like, it was so good, and I was still like, this is one of my favorite Godzilla movies. So it's like, it's sometimes, it honestly doesn't matter. So I thought all of that stuff was really interesting. Thank you so much again for that email, Robert. That was so it was so helpful, and it's been so helpful hearing from you about this stuff. And I think it's also just like, it is relevant for this particular movie because this really was the first one where there wasn't like significant editing to it, like there have been for other movies to one extent or another. Like, the editing was so minor. The scene that they added, again, was made by the actual creators of this movie. So it's not like it was by some other offshore company or whatever. And it also was like it was one of only 3 Toho Godzilla movies to be released in Japan and American theaters in the same year.
Oh, wow.
Like, it's this movie. Every other movie, it's always delayed by a few years until Shin Godzilla and then Godzilla -1. Isn't that insane? Wow. Like, isn't that ridiculous?
That is actually really surprising.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
that's really surprising.
Well, to be fair, like, at a certain point, after, is it Godzilla 85 or Biollante? I don't remember which one. After one of those, it just isn't in theaters like, they don't put them in theaters.
Oh, actually, yeah. No, that makes so much more sense actually now.
Yeah, like,
less
there's that
surprising
stretch
than I thought.
Yeah, there's that stretch, and then Godzilla 2000 like is in theaters, and I think after that, for another long stretch, they don't show up in theaters for a long time. So like, that's also why. But even still, there's still a lot of Godzilla movies that were in theaters that weren't the same year. So it's pretty wild. Like, this is it's very popular in America, for the rest of the 60s and 70s. The fact that this is the only movie that doesn't get delayed to be released in American theaters is just really interesting.
That's actually fast. I mean, this is sort of this is totally outside the conversation of this movie, so I'll keep it really short. But that really makes me chuckle when people talk about how difficult it was to watch Godzilla -1.
What are you talking about?
It's like, it's one of the most accessible, easy to watch Godzilla movies. Like, you might not be able to watch it right this moment, but it was very easy to watch. And when you think about all the Godzilla movies that you could not watch in an American theater ever, it makes it feel like an even more ridiculous complaint.
Yeah. I think people are just used to it just immediately going to streaming or DVD or being the most easily available high quality torrent, like right off the bat. Yeah. No, things were different back in the 1960s, believe it or not.
Shocking. But yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you again, Robert.
Yes. What kind of plot stuff do you want to talk about? We can go anywhere.
Yeah. So, I mean, like you said, it's been a little chaotic. So let's start at a place that makes sense, which is the beginning, right? And this doesn't mean we have to go over everything we already went over, but one of the things, again, that you all asked was how do these two monsters intersect, right? And I actually think my unrevised prediction was more accurate than my revised prediction, because I think my revised one, I don't even remember, whatever. But like the fact that it's just like an egg that washes up on shore, and Godzilla is in fact the problem that needs to be stopped, not Mothra. And that was my initial prediction, and then I changed it to Mothra being a problem that Godzilla has to fix.
Yeah, which I thought was very funny because
only because we talked so much in King Kong versus Godzilla about Godzilla's transformation into a hero character. And I didn't anticipate this movie feeling way more like the tone shifted in King Kong versus Godzilla pretty dramatically to the point where I had to like center myself to like get in the right space for the tone. This movie takes it back to a more familiar tone and doesn't have a lot of that like wackiness in it, right? So I think that prediction was made kind of with King Kong versus Godzilla in mind, and I should have never changed it, because it really was just like Godzilla's a problem, Mothra's going to help. Also, when that egg washed up on shore, I was like, holy shit, I'm right. I'm so right. Mothra's just going to hatch all over again. And then it wasn't. I was shocked when Mothra like already existed, or rather what it was, there's this egg. I'm assuming it's going to be Mothra's, like, when they say Mothra's egg, I'm assuming that means Mothra's inside it. Right. But then characters respond to the Shobijin saying Mothra as if they've heard of Mothra before. Right. So I was like, wait a second, what's in the egg? And then at one point I was so confused that I was like, is Godzilla in the egg? like the egg really was this fascinating thing, not knowing what was going on, you know?
That's really funny.
There was a lot of intrigue around the egg. I liked it.
Yeah. Which, by the way, that egg looks so cool. Dude. When they have the like the colored painting of the egg on the beach, like composited on there, it's so beautiful.
Okay, the composite looks better than most of their composite shots in this, if not better than all the composite shots. But also the set egg, the one that they're actually walking up to and touching. So good. Holy crap. They did an amazing job making that feel real. That was awesome. I was really surprised that they had an actual set for the egg that they could walk up to and interact with. So cool. Yeah. So cool. Everything about the egg looked really good. The egg with like all the scaffolding around it and all that sort of stuff still looked good. It's weird because it's just an egg, but because it's so gargantuan, you can really fuck that up.
Yeah. And then when it actually hatches, like the rotoscoped drawing of the cracking, like animated on the egg, it's so cool. Yeah. It's so well done.
Yeah. And at one point they do just straight up say like a larva is going to hatch out of this egg. And I was like, okay, so it's another Mothra. In much the same way we got another Godzilla. Sure. Which was a funny parallel to me. But Gagatrandra, that there were twins. Absolutely shocked. Couldn't believe it. When it started cracking again, I was like, wait a second. There's something else in there. I was just as surprised as they were.
This movie got twists, yo. Like the fact, okay, this is Mothra versus Godzilla, and Mothra is the good guy, but Mothra fucking dies in this movie, and it's her larva, her twin larva, that have to defeat Godzilla. Yeah. Like, what a fight. I remember watching this movie when I'm pretty sure I'd seen bits and pieces of it. I think we talked about that first episode. This is one that I'm pretty sure I'd seen bits and pieces on like Sci-Fi Channel when I was a kid or something, right? But I had like no memory of it or whatever, right? So when I was watching it for a Criterion set a few years ago, it was basically like watching it for the first time. And I was fucking gagged when I'm like, Mothra is dead now and there's how much of the movie left? And these two are larvae. Are they going to like turn into Mothras? By the end, they can't just defeat Godzilla's larva. And they kick his ass as little worms. Yeah. It's so cool.
It's not even, but like, okay, Mothra dying is certainly a shock, but also Mothra just leaving was a shock to me. Like, there's so many, like, one of the twists to me is that Mothra's there and then leaves. And I was like, holy shit,
true.
wait, what are we going to do now if Mothra's gone?
That's so true.
Mothra's gone like 45 minutes into the movie, but the egg is still there. And I was totally confused as to what was going to happen. That's probably where I started to think, like, you know, like, it's just going to be another Mothra, I guess. Like, there's just going to be two existing at the same time, which is still possible by the end of the movie. But yeah, then the fact that she dies, the fact that these larvae are able to take down Godzilla. I mean, this really, when I say this is a Mothra movie, like, fully, like, Mothra dies, but Mothra also wins. Like, Mothra is the hero. Mothra does everything. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's such an interestingly constructed movie.
Yeah.
I really love it. It is not a formulaic movie whatsoever. Like, as easy as it could be, it is absolutely not.
It's not, which is weird because there are parts of it that feel like it might have been, right? Like, when you see the cast initially, you're like, okay, I kind of know what I'm in for.
Right.
And then there's certain elements of this movie that do feel very much like the Mothra movie, or even the King Kong versus Godzilla movie. There's a part where Godzilla has risen and they're trying to figure out what to do about Godzilla. And you've got all these military guys talking about their plots and plans to stop Godzilla. And I was like, this feels like exactly what they did in King Kong versus Godzilla. But despite some of those things feeling really familiar, it's not formulaic. It's unpredictable. There's much more of the movie beyond when you think the movie's about to end, but not in a way like, was it Returns, where I was like, the movie could have ended 20 minutes ago. This one, it's like still interesting, intriguing, relevant stuff.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, the only thing I will say is that I do think, skipping ahead to the end of the movie, I guess, but like the last sort of act with the human characters, once Mothra is dead and it just becomes the egg needs to hatch and then the egg hatches and they fight Godzilla, it's so clear that the human characters really, like, their story is done. They really don't have anything to do. So they just have to absolutely shoehorn in a thing for them to do.
Right. That's the thing. It makes total sense to ask the question, why did the final fight have to happen on a different island? And it's that the human characters just had nothing to do.
Yeah.
Because there really isn't a reason for them to take the fight somewhere else. It's not like anybody says, let's draw them away from civilization. Like, that didn't cross anyone's mind.
Yeah.
That's not why they leave. But it's still, I think it was exciting enough that I wasn't thinking too hard about that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't as jarring of a change as Raids, right? Like that changes, and I feel like you're almost watching a totally different movie for a second and don't even really know where you are. This is at least a continuation of what was just happening.
Yeah. I mean, it's part and parcel to the heroes are saving civilians from the destruction that's happening around them. It's just funny that it's like a bus full of school children on a school trip to a remote island where the monsters are fighting and you have to go there. It's like, okay, you took a lot of like long walk to get there, but it got us that cool silhouette shot of the four heroes standing on a rock. I fucking love that shot. So good.
It is still an interesting choice though, because like I do think it is more interesting to have people around who are trapped, who have to figure out a way not to get destroyed by these monsters, right? Like it adds some stakes, it adds some tension, it gives you something, sort of to worry about, I guess, even if they're all going to be fine. I think that's something maybe King Kong versus Godzilla we talked about didn't really explore at all. Like there wasn't a lot of destruction there, and I think you could feel that. But I guess there really isn't a reason, even with the kids over there really isn't a reason that same sort of addition, that sort of like additional stakes couldn't have still just happened where they were. And then those four characters could still be doing things, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it was probably
doesn't really
hard.
matter either way, I suppose.
It doesn't matter, but I wonder if part of it is like they're not having a fight in like a populated city at this moment or town at this moment, probably partially to save money on building all of those miniatures, which means it's harder to justify why there would be like people to save in what feels like kind of just the coast. Like there's not really anywhere around,
That's true.
So they had to come up with a way to have people to save, but also in a spot where they wouldn't have to building miniatures.
That makes sense. That's practical. Yeah.
I think it makes the most sense. Like it's fine ultimately. Like it doesn't bother me when watching it, but I'm also watching it. I'm sort of like, Oh, you had really nothing to do, so now you have to save school children. All right, I get it. Move along.
I'm ultimately fine with it, if
fine.
only because it adds those additional stakes, and I'd rather have them there than not.
Yeah. It does. It helps make the final battle more, higher stakes and a little more.
Yeah, that's a thing now.
Sense.
What, like 6 movies in, that I feel confidently, and we'll see if I change my mind 12 movies in or 18 movies in. That's a thing that I think I'm always going to want or feel the need for.
Mm-hmm.
There are times in like Power Rangers or Super Sentai or even Ultraman where like you have these gargantuan creatures fighting, and sometimes, not all the time, sometimes it just is like in an open space, you know what I mean? And I'd rather there be something that they could accidentally destroy. It's the one big takeaway I had from raids, which is like what happens when you're caught up in the middle of this thing you have no control over. So I have a feeling that's going to be a consistent thing. If there are other movies that do the same thing King Kong versus Godzilla did, where they don't have those stakes, I feel like that's probably going to be a thing that bothers me. We'll see though. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, we already talked about like, the Infinite Islanders and Shobijin and stuff like that, but I really like, I really like the line, like when they just realize like, oh, these capitalists aren't going to give us our egg back. We're just going to dip out.
Mm-hmm.
They, as they're leaving and on Mothra flying away, they're like, goodbye, everyone. It saddens us that certain people cared so little for our feelings. It's not acted like that. Like they just say it in their nice Shobijin voice, but I'm like reading the subtitles like, that is so passive aggressive. Like
it is, but like because the Shobijin are the ones saying it like it doesn't feel that way. Because like they're even the ones.
It's just so funny. They're
even the ones that like on Infant Island are sort of like even when they say no, it doesn't feel the same way as the leader of Infant Island saying no.
They're like reluctantly saying no. Like they're sort of like we're like we literally read your minds and see into your soul and can see that you're good people. We acknowledge that. We're validating you that you are doing the right thing. Understand why you're doing it. You are doing the right thing, but we cannot in good faith we can't in good faith help you just based on everything else in the world that you're existing.
But I bring that up. I reference that moment in this conversation that you're talking about them leaving, because the Shobijin feel like that one person who could say anything that if anyone else said it, it would be like horrifying. Like I feel like they could say anything. They could say the meanest thing you've ever heard in your life, and you're like, it's valid. They have every right to say it, and I guess I agree. Like they're just, it's so funny. Like you said, reading the subtitle, it's like if I said that, I'd get slapped across the face.
I also like that when Mothra leaves the newspaper that says faith in humans shattered.
I was really surprised.
Yeah.
There were 2 things I was surprised about related to that. One, I was surprised that Mothra was already there, and I'm not gonna pick this apart, but I was surprised that Mothra was there, if only because Mothra is so huge, that she could be anywhere around there without people noticing it's a little weird.
If anyone could travel quietly, it's our beautiful, like elegant Queen Mothra.
Yeah, totally. It just caught me off guard. But then the other thing related to that surprised me was the fact that there even were headlines about Mothra. Like it really told me how things were like I guess the severity of what just happened,
Yeah.
Because it confirmed that everybody's aware of Mothra. It confirms sort of like what the feelings towards Mothra are versus something like Godzilla that they're also all aware of. The fact that like they were upset that Mothra was disappointed in them. You know what I mean?
As we all should be.
Right. But and I guess I'm not surprised by that. I'm just surprised that like the consciousness of Mothra was that, I guess, in this movie. Like pleasantly so. I'm happy I was surprised by that. But I guess all that say I love the headlines for that reason. I was like, oh, okay, everybody gets it.
It does hammer in this interesting idea of like Mothra being kind of this like pseudo religious figure in this world for people, or like could be that, like this just sort of like person that you don't want to let down, that is sort of your guardian. And if you let your guardian down, like, you should feel immense shame in a way that you've never felt that before, you know? And that's kind of what this is like, what a big part of this movie is about, really, you know, is like the shame of like what your fellow humans are doing and trying to take responsibility for that as best you can. And also recognizing that, like, at the end of the day, we're all on equal playing fields, and that we all have the capacity to die, and everything that we built can be destroyed by things that are more powerful than us, that we are out of our control.
I mean, all that is absolutely true. The other, when you were talking about Mothra as this, like, sort of, you know, religious figure almost, like, it's interesting to me that I've only seen 4 monsters at this point. Well, to this movie's point, right? Not the future
for the
movies.
Showa-era. Yeah.
I've only seen like 4 monsters, right? I've seen Godzilla, I've seen Anguirus, I've seen King Kong, and I've seen Mothra, right? I'm not missing anybody. Mm-mm. And Mothra is so interesting to me because these other monsters are, I guess King Kong's an exception, but King Kong is still viewed as a destructive force. These other monsters sort of exist in this space that is humans have let the world down, like Earth down, and Earth is fucking mad and like retaliating, right? Like,
yeah,
that's sort of the vibe. If it isn't the explicit sort of takeaway, it's the vibe, right? We fucked up and now we're facing the violent consequences of our actions. Mothra is like, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. Like, humans have failed nature again. Humans have failed the Earth again. Humans have done something bad, but instead of Mothra just being violent back, it's like, well, I guess you're just not as good as I thought you were. That's a bummer. Like, it just feels so much worse.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It's a different
That's
consequence
so
with a totally different vibe. I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. That's Mothra.
And, you know, joked about Mothra dying for our sins in the last movie.
Yeah.
Mothra being Jesus literally dies for our sins in this movie.
It feels so much worse, right?
Yeah.
Like, it feels so much worse. Like, getting the violent punishment feels like you have closure, right? You're like, okay, it's even, right?
Yeah.
We fucked up. We got fucked up. Mothra does not give you that catharsis.
It's just such a good point, because even like the Showa points are sort of like, we specifically want to avoid violence. We are here because this larva, when it hatches, we're like, they're even coming in there like, okay, we're owning up. This is our problem, not yours.
Yeah.
We're just trying to get this egg out of here so the larvae don't fuck up your world on their way back to our island. Like, really, truly, like, the Showa and Mothra kind of don't have anything to lose at first, until because the egg's doesn't seem to be in danger, because no matter what the humans are doing, they're going to hatch and the larvae will just kill people and head back to the island. They really are only coming to be like, please give us our egg back, or else bad things are going to happen. We are here to help you. Yeah. And so to still get pushed back, even in the face of, we're literally like putting ourselves out there for you, and you're still telling us to fuck off. You know what? Great.
We'll fuck off.
I've never been more disappointed in you. I will leave.
This is Marge Simpson not responding to Bart's antics in that episode, right? Like, he knows it's worse because she doesn't get mad. She just walks away. Like,
and like, in a way, like, even though Mothra didn't cause it, Godzilla ends up kind of being the punishment, because it's sort of like, oh, interesting.
Which is appropriate, right? It still fits this exact dynamic that I'm talking about.
Right. It's like, oh, interesting. So maybe you shouldn't have just told us to fuck off, or else we could have helped you with your Godzilla problem. But sorry, you told us to fuck off, so we fucked off.
Yeah.
We're just doing what you told us to do.
Yeah. And then still ultimately, you know, it's interesting.
Yeah, and you still come back begging on your hands and knees.
Yeah. It's just interesting. Mothra is so notable for me right now because she's so different than any of the monsters. I guess even in the future, right? Even the one monster I've seen in the future is like very different than Mothra, and I imagine it'll continue to be that way, if only based on the fact that I even know Mothra by reputation. I don't know what other monster movies were happening at this time that aren't part of this marathon we're doing, but I know they exist, and I have to imagine Mothra's probably pretty unique even among them.
Yeah. So much good shit.
Yeah.
Also, just Godzilla popping out of the dirt is so fucking cool. Like that's his entrance.
Mm-hmm.
Like his whole entrance is so neat and like so unlike anything else. Like it's almost, it's like there's so many questions of like, so we can just hide underground. What can you do exactly? But
no, so I'm guessing if I had to make it make sense, he fell in his last appearance. He fell off a cliff, right?
Yeah.
And at this point, we're sort of operating like this is all the same Godzilla because they're not killing him, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And we just know like, well, they're not going to kill him because they want him to come back. I'm assuming that in this case, like, is it that he fell off a cliff and then was like buried under, like this is the spot he fell. Well, no, because we know the locations where all these things happen.
I think part of it was like, okay, I could be misremembering, but I think like the typhoon flooded certain areas, and then where this area was, the water had cleared out, right? So is the implication that he had just washed ashore along with the typhoon flood water, got buried under a bunch of mud, and then once that water cleared out, like he probably just took a nap and then he woke up and was just underground instead of underwater.
I don't know.
That's why he was mad.
I thought thinking about it wouldn't be a problem, but maybe thinking about it's a problem.
Yeah.
Not a problem for the movie, but like,
right.
We don't need to figure it out.
And it's also like, it's fucking cool. But it's such a cool effect.
Yeah, rule of cool, right? Like he's gonna come out of the ground, so who cares?
Yeah. It's like Godzilla's here, you know. I mean, it is also, it's so indicative of just like, he not even mentioned, and then out of nowhere Godzilla fucking bursts out of the ground with zero context, zero explanation, and now he's here and you have to deal with it. Like, I do actually really like that a lot.
So, okay, in that scene, or like right before that happens, they're talking about radiation, and there's this the guy who's in charge of development is like, I don't want you testing for radiation, not because I give a shit, but because I want development to keep going, right? Don't slow down my operation. Am I okay? At the risk of sounding very stupid, what Junko found was a piece of Godzilla, right? That's the implication.
You know what? I meant to look up some summaries to see if anyone else spelled this out, because I was unclear. Okay,
that is enough validation that the movie does not explicitly tell us.
Because at first I thought it was like, is that a piece of the egg or something? Because it's a similar color scheme.
I assumed that was
isn't what it is,
to
but
be...
it's radioactive, so it obviously isn't. A strange blue-gray object among the wreckage is what Wikipedia calls it.
I think the only interpretation that makes sense is that it's a piece of Godzilla, and it's our first sort of clue that Godzilla could be involved. Or rather, at the very least, that something else is going on, because radiation comes up again in that same sort of area, and then Godzilla pops up. So, but okay, that makes me feel better that I didn't walk away being utterly confused by that scale thing.
Yeah, no, I didn't know what it was.
Okay, cool.
Because it's a weird color if it was supposed to be Godzilla's scale or something. So
yeah, I guess.
Whatever. Or he made something that he made radioactive. I don't know. We talked a little bit about the actual fight between the two.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some like very iconic moments, like Mothra dragging Godzilla by the tail is like a very well-known like gift moment from this movie.
Well, if anybody is suspicious that I know more than I do, here's your indication I don't. That was a delight to me because I've never seen that before.
Yes.
That was so amazing. Like probably actually cheered in my apartment because that was such a cool idea and executed very well.
Yeah, and I think too, if I'm remembering correctly, I think it's like she does that right when he's like approaching her egg, like clearly gonna break it or eat it or whatever, and that's when she fucking grabs him by the tail and drags him. It literally is like a "stay away from my babies, you bitch" moment.
For sure.
It's so fucking good.
Yeah, no, it's great. Like Mothra is only like violent in this movie when the egg is directly threatened. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
it's
then
so smart.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I also loved, I guess it could get old eventually, but I feel like they did the wind, like her wind flap effect really well in this one. It felt very destructive. It felt very real. And I thought that was really cool. We talked about the dragging. I liked when she was on his head and he was sort of flailing. But I didn't always love there was a little bit more frantic than I necessarily wanted.
Sure.
But I mean, it was a better fight than I would have expected. There may be a few too many like close-ups where I couldn't really make out what was happening other than just like it's a fight. But you know, Hamish mentioned this in the last one with Mothra not being acted by a person, it can be challenging to make Mothra feel dynamic, right? So, you know, it's entirely possible that if we didn't get some of those close-ups or certain elements weren't frantic as I've been describing them, that Mothra would feel unanimated or would feel like stiff. So
yeah,
I don't know what the version looks like wider and not up close like that, but maybe it was worse.
No, I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Oh, the powder.
Yep. That's exactly what I was gonna say.
I like almost completely forgot about that. Like she has a. They described it as poison, which feels like poison,
but I think what it's meant to be, I forget what they're called, but like, the scales that like butterflies and moths have on their wings. I think all it is that she's shooting that out because she dies right after that, and that's like, if a butterfly or a moth loses all of those, they're gonna die too. So I think she's shooting all of those out, and they are just poisonous, is what it really is. But yeah, they describe it as like poison powder or something.
So yeah, Jiro, Egg Guy, describes it as poison. He's the one who uses the word poison. The priestesses describe it just as her final attack, right? So if they are the arbiters of Mothra's canon,
right?
Technically, we don't really know what it is yet. It does feel weird for Mothra to be poisonous. Like, I don't know, something about that feels like I don't know, not like Mothra-y as I know her so far.
Poisonous to Godzilla.
Sure.
I feel like maybe you could say, like, maybe in a magical way,
I'd like to think of it more as a stun spore than a poison powder if we're going to put it in Pokemon moves.
There you go. Into that. I like that. I mean, it feels like that too, because it doesn't kill him. It does really just sort of stun him and weaken him temporarily, and then she like dies shortly thereafter, which they literally she literally loses the light behind her eyes when she dies. It's so sad.
It's really sad.
It's very moving.
And it's really effective. I mean, when Godzilla manages to hit her with the atomic breath, which, by the way, so much atomic breath in this movie, but like always, one thing that's really interesting about the atomic breath in this movie is it always feels desperate. Like it almost never feels. I guess there's like one scene I'm thinking of where it feels really intentional, but a lot of times it just feels desperate. Like he's flailing around and like attacking wildly, or like she's attacking him and he's like, atomic breath. You know what I mean? Like it's an interesting approach to it that we haven't quite seen. But when he finally hits her with one of those blasts, it's like, oh shit. And I think her wing is even like singed. I think they show it.
I think
smoking.
So,
yeah. It's rough.
Yeah. I love Mothra so much.
Yeah. She's great.
Such an amazing person. So she's such an amazing person. She's literally not a person, but you know what? In my heart.
I wasn't going to call it out.
Yeah.
This movie is particularly brutal if you are like inclined to feel sympathy for Godzilla. Godzilla fucking goes through it between all the shit that he gets stuck on, trips over, falls into, hit with, covered in, blasted with, like even just like the powder feels like brutal though. And a lot of this can be attributed to the actor doing a really great job, but like the powder feels painful. Like the way she's attacking him, he seems like, just completely out of his element. And then the larva, like we said, I wasn't expecting them to be able to defeat him,
they kick his ass.
I mean, he doesn't know what to do when the one of them bites his tail. And it clearly fucking hurts because of the way he reacts to it. And then their silk or whatever we call it, like really like affects him in a surprising way.
Yeah.
Dude just really like woke up on the wrong day, man.
You seriously?
Like, I don't think he ever had his bearings. Like he just woke up and a ton of shit happened to him. And then he tried to get away and he just went to the wrong island. Like, it just is really, really rough.
Yeah, poor guy. Poor guy.
I don't think I've ever, like, this is a wild thing to say because the first movie, I think Godzilla is so sympathetic, but I don't know that I've ever felt so much sympathy for Godzilla as I have so far in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't directly cause anything bad to happen. It's just, it's all indirectly and accidental.
Yeah.
Just is, victim of circumstance.
Even the initial threat to the egg is an accident. He like turns around and his tail knocks over the scaffolding that's around the egg. Like so much of it is just bull in a china shop. He
does look at it a little menacingly, and I'm pretty sure that he probably wants to eat it. But I eat eggs too. So and it's sort of like, oh, big egg. I love a big egg, like I get it.
Yeah.
He doesn't know that it's Mothra's egg necessarily.
Yeah. What is it? 137,000 times the size of a regular egg?
Something like that. Sure.
Whatever they say. However he comes up with his calculation for
it's
buying
like
the egg.
Chicken eggs times whatever. That's how much it costs.
Yeah.
That's how you do it. It's so funny.
One thing, I mean, I guess we sort of referenced it, but I was really surprised at how bloody that one fight was, where Kumayama punches Torihata in the face like 4 times.
Yeah.
That shit was wild. I don't really have much more to say about it. It just was a shock.
It is wild. I mean, that whole scene is like in a movie that is like very present, very clearly, like a very all ages, like the brutality is, you know, like Godzilla's suit getting on fire, but there's like the kaiju violence doesn't feel the same most of the time.
Totally.
That level of violence is suddenly like a very real, and it's like, you know, he's getting his head punched in the face and he like shoots the guy in the head. Like it's like very real violence in the middle of this movie, like kind of out of nowhere. And then once they're dead, like there's no more violence like that for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. I mean, in the context of the movie, it's really the only place it would make sense is like the only bad dudes in the movie. So
yeah,
I think that's the only thing that kind of makes it not feel like it's super out of place.
Yeah.
It's interesting this movie still had I mean, I don't know how you do a Godzilla movie without some sort of military presence, but I think maybe this is the movie where the military presence is least felt, perhaps.
Well, it's weird. It's like least felt in terms of like you don't really spend any time with like military generals or anything like that, but like they're more effective in this movie, I feel like, than other ones, because they are using the Godzilla's weakness to electricity from Godzilla versus King Kong versus Godzilla. They like put that, like, at first it's funny because at first like you see the helicopters drop a net on Godzilla and it's sort of like, what do you think that's gonna do?
That's more what I was thinking.
but it's really like, I think that's conducting electricity, because after they throw those on there, then they fire off whatever their electric weapons are to electrocute him, and it does genuinely weaken him, you know?
Yeah.
So.
That's a good point. I guess they are less a character, but yeah, you're right. They are more effective than the military tends to be, at least to this point.
They definitely do more, and, you know, I think one of the things that like we were talking about with Hamish in the Mothra episode was like they use these like heat rays seemingly out of nowhere, which was because they had heat rays in another movie with Toho. In this movie, it's sort of like the same thing where like nobody's really sitting there calling out like, in Godzilla's fight with King Kong, we all learn that he's weak to electricity. It's this sort of like, if you know, you know, they're using electrical weapons on him now because the military can do that, you know?
Yeah. The last thing is just I really like the way the movie ends. Like sometimes the sort of bow they try to put on the end really flops, but this one really works for me. I think it is Jiro who is surprised that they're just like letting everybody leave, that they're just sort of like, we're not even going to like try to come up with some way to thank them. And Ishiro says the only way to thank them is to build a better world. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. A lot of this movie is just kind of like trying to recognize that like maybe you don't, like, you know, the internet meme of like I've lost my faith in humanity, and a lot of this movie is people realizing like, have I lost my faith in humanity because maybe the Infinite Islanders are right, and then recognizing like the way to restore your faith in humanity is by making things better and trying to like live in the world together, right?
Yeah, and so much, I mean, we talked about the movie being about trust, but so much of this movie's problems are caused by capitalism, which is this expectation of exchange, right? So like the expectation that that you're doing something for someone because you expect something in return, and vice versa. And so the only way to really break that chain of everything being transactional is to just say, you know what? They did their thing and we're just going to do our thing, and we're going to stop expecting everything is a transactional interaction, you know? I think that's a great place for it to sort of land.
It's very nice. And it feels very Mothra too.
Yes.
Like as we've come to understand her.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Good movie. I liked this one a lot.
Very good movie. Yeah.
I wasn't sure what to expect because King Kong versus Godzilla like wasn't entirely my vibe, but for reasons that I don't think we'll see again, fortunately.
Yeah.
But since that's really my only point of reference, I really wasn't sure what to expect here, and I'm very pleased.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I really like this one a lot. I think it being considered one of the best, I think, is very well deserved. And I think it is a good proof of concept for what you can do with a Godzilla versus whatever movie, which we're going to see plenty of going forward.
Yeah, I'm really curious. I can't wait to see what that looks like moving forward because Mothra is so unique. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Absolutely. Speaking of Mothra, one last thing that I had is just a quote that I really love from Hiroshi Koizumi, our resident hot man, hottest man on earth. It was from the Ishiro Honda biography that I read this quote. And he was talking about, it's a quote of him talking about Honda in an interview. And he says, Mothra's role was a messenger of peace. I think the idea of Mothra showed what Honda-san was like at heart better than Godzilla did.
I love that. And I think it makes a lot of...
I get really emotional like every time I read that.
Because it kind of... I think it kind of speaks to what you hope is some sort of peace. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the art that came... Like Godzilla, the original one is art that came out of like so much pain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think Mothra even existing, I think... Koizumi seeing it the way that he sees it is this indication that maybe Honda has gotten some sort of peace through making these works of art, you know?
I think so. Yeah, I think Godzilla was sort of like putting that pain on display and representing the problem of the world, and Mothra is sort of almost a response to that of like, well, here's your answer to that problem. Like this is the idea of peace and like faith in our fellow man. Like that is your answer to the problem of Godzilla and the way that you heal from that pain.
Yeah.
And like that idea, like it's very simple, you know, when you put it in those terms, but like, I think it really just speaks to the power of these characters. And I do think you see that reflected in this movie when you put those two characters, when you put Godzilla and Mothra against each other. I think you really see that idea like, really reflected in this movie.
Yeah, Mothra feels different, man.
Yeah. Well, Doug.
Yeah.
We finished Mothra March.
We did.
Yeah.
So sad it's over.
I know. I mean, we'll see plenty more of Mothra. You've got plenty more Mothra movies.
And what's wild is like I truly don't know what to expect from more Mothra. I mean, we have 2 Mothra larvae swimming around.
Yeah.
And I know that Mothra continues to appear, but I don't know how much or in like what context. The only other thing that I know of Mothra is like the one sort of shot of Mothra in... Maybe, what is it? Is it the new King of Monsters or whatever that was? There was
sure.
I've seen like just the briefest opening of her wings, which is nothing. That means I don't know anything, you know?
Yeah. Oh, okay. We're getting to some predictions.
Great.
For the Showa era, like Mothra, like we said, Mothra is dead. The movie ends with 2 of Mothra's larval children. So like, what do you think? How are we going to follow up on that? Are we going to see next time we have a movie that has a Mothra in it?
Yeah.
Do we get 2 Mothras? Do we get 2 larvas? How's this working?
I don't think we're going to see 2 Mothras, but I want it so bad. I want Mothra's twin Mothras so bad. That would be so amazing. But I don't know that happens unless the next Mothra movie happens pretty soon after this one does.
Sure.
I just don't, again, because the way that this quote cinematic universe works is so different than what we expect in 2024. You know, I think there is kind of an expiration date on the twin Mothras, but I hope I'm wrong. I don't think we'll get 2 of them, but I really want to see 2 of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be mean, and I'm not going to tell you what the name of the next Showa-era movie is, because I think it might color your perception of what you might expect from it. But I'm curious of, like, not knowing what comes next. Like, you kind of have a better grasp of what the Showa-era is now, I would say, because you've seen multiple movies. So, like, just what do you think the next Showa-era movie, do you think it's going to acknowledge these events? Do you think it's going to continue threads? Is it going to just be Godzilla fights another monster? Any of these characters appearing again? Anything? You feel like you might be able to grasp.
I mean, you say I have a grasp, but like the 2 most recent movies are King Kong versus Godzilla and Mothra versus Godzilla, which are so wildly different.
Yeah, sure.
I suspect that the monster versus monster thing just continues. I don't know why they would do a solo Godzilla movie right after these 2 wildly successful monster versus monster movies. And I know that there are other Toho monsters. So I just don't know why they wouldn't do another monster versus monster. Sure. But we're not covering the next movie next, so I don't really know what that means.
You got a little time. Do you think Godzilla's going to continue to be an antagonist like he was in the next movie, or is he going to start being a good guy yet?
I think this... I don't think he's necessarily going to continue to be like a villain. I don't know that we've ever seen him truly as a villain. But,
sure, fair.
But I think this movie is unique. I think because Mothra is Mothra, we talked about this at the top, right? Godzilla kind of had to be this weird sort of version of Godzilla that incidentally ends up in here, causes a bunch of destruction, and is like accidentally the villain of the story. Or not the story, but the villain of the monster side of the story. I think this is more where my end of Mothra prediction makes sense, where now he has to become a hero at some point. It's got to happen, right? So like maybe he's not, maybe the next movie he's not immediately a hero, but maybe it's more level playing field with other monster. God, I love this. I'm so affected by the fact that I know he becomes like a heroic figure at some point.
But I think that makes it so much more fun though, because it's just sort of like, when is this happening? When is this going to happen now?
So I guess to answer your question, I don't think he's going to be a heroic figure in the next one.
Okay.
But I also don't think he's going to be a villain.
Sure. Can I tell you the title of the next movie, the next Showa-era movie that we're going to cover in a couple of months?
Oh, in a couple of months we're covering it? That makes me... The fact that you're offering makes me feel like it's not a monster versus monster movie, so go ahead.
This is a Godzilla movie, even though his name's not in the title, because it's called Ghidorah, the three-headed monster.
Oh, okay.
So that I knew that might color your expectations a bit. That's why I wanted to ask all those questions before you knew that title.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Ghidorah is one of the few monsters I was aware of.
Right. Exactly.
In that introductory episode.
That's why I didn't want to just throw that there, because I feel like that would color your prediction answers.
Well, here's the thing. I recognize Ghidorah. I can name Ghidorah. I don't know anything about Ghidorah. So that actually doesn't change really.
Oh, okay.
Like, I don't know if Ghidorah is like an evil thing or I don't think it's a good thing. So, but
I genuinely thought you knew the gist of Ghidorah. No. So actually, okay, never mind.
Don't know anything about it. I only recognize Ghidorah.
Cool.
Yeah.
We'll revisit that question when it's like the month before that episode, comes out. So you can marinate on that if you want, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know what that means. means. It does kind of, I'm not going to change anything I said, but it does make me think about it slightly differently.
Right. Well, we're not there yet, because we're gonna pivot from the Showa-era for a couple months. We're gonna have a Heisei-era movie next month, and then a Millennium-era movie the month after that. So what's coming next? April 13th, Godzilla vs. Biollante from 1989. So this is the movie that comes out right after, or not right after. This movie comes out 5 years after the return of Godzilla.
Is it the immediately?
Yes.
Okay.
This is the successor to the Return of Godzilla. There's just a 5-year gap between the two movies.
Okay.
We're going to have a special guest on that episode. So I'm very excited for that. So what do you know about Biollante, Doug? Anything?
It's like a plant, maybe? Right?
Sure.
That's it. I think it's a plant.
I love it.
I've heard the name, and I think since we started the podcast, I try not to allow the algorithm to inform me of things,
but it's going to,
and it hasn't. Right, it hasn't really affected much, but it has shown me Biollante, and that's about it. And I think it's a plant.
Yeah. How similar or different tonally in terms of like kind of storytelling structure and vibe do you think it's going to be to the Return of Godzilla?
Oh boy. I figure it's, well, wait, that's when they start becoming, it's basically an anthology, right?
No. That's the Millennium era.
Okay.
This is the Heisei era, which there is, I'll tell you that there is continuity in this era. So,
I don't see why it would change tonally from that one, because that one was sort of like a reset, right? And what it was resetting, I imagine, was the tone. I imagine Godzilla kind of got to a point where it had become so far from maybe its origin that like a reboot made sense to shift the tone. So I don't think so. Although it's a fucking giant plant, so I don't know. I'm going to say the tone is the same or very similar. Okay. That's like sincere.
Do you think Godzilla is the protagonist or antagonist of the movie?
Oh. I hadn't considered this.
Yeah.
This makes more sense. when it's the Showa stuff, because the Showa stuff, I feel like even though I don't know, I feel like I know Showa sort of generally.
But it's hard. You've only seen one movie from this era. So.
I know, and it's like the first one.
Yeah.
I feel like what happened to Godzilla at the end of that one?
He fell into a volcano. Budge.
And we did that to him. I feel like Godzilla's not gonna be a good guy. There's no way.
Yeah.
I feel like Godzilla's gonna be pissed.
Yeah.
So no, Godzilla's not a good guy in that one.
Cool.
I don't know what that means for Biollante, but I know it's a plant.
I love it. I'm so excited. That's gonna be a really fun one. It's a very beloved movie. Yeah.
Okay.
So that'll be a really fun one to do. But yeah, I've loved talking about Mothra this month.
Wait, can I ask a question? I know you just started to wrap up.
That's okay.
I know we're going to see Mothra again in Godzilla movies.
Uh-huh.
Are there other Mothra movies that we are not going to watch that I would be able to watch?
Yeah, not from the Showa era. There are some, I think they were in the 90s, I believe.
Okay.
I think they were like around 95 or something like that. The Return of Mothra movies, I think Hamish mentioned those in the last episode. And I think, if I remember correctly, or Rebirth of Mothra, that's what they're called. The Rebirth of Mothra movies, and there's like a trilogy of them.
Okay.
I've seen one of them, but I only half paid attention to it.
Okay.
Thought it looked cool, but I can't tell you if I thought it was amazingly good or not, because I really don't remember. But I've been meaning to watch through all of them.
Yeah.
I haven't heard them be regarded as highly as like some other movies from that era that are non-Godzilla movies. So I don't know if that means that they're like not very good or if they're just like middling or not. I don't know. But those are things that you can watch. I don't think there's any other Mothra movies other than that are solo Mothra movies that we wouldn't be watching. We're pretty much seeing everything Mothra does in the Godzilla podcast.
Cool.
Well, speaking of Mothra, Mothra's a queer icon. And if you want to find other queer creators who talk about media, check out the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective at glitterjaw.com. Follow on Twitter, Facebook, and Blue Sky at Glitterjaw, and Instagram at GlitterjawPods. Doug, if people want to find you and talk with you about Mothra, where can they do that?
You can find me all over the place at Ikkybooley, ICKYBOOLEY. You can also listen to me more on other Glitterjaw podcasts. Derek, you and I do a weekly one about Spider-Man cartoons called Walloping Web Snappers. And I do one with my friend Katie called Novel Gaming, where we catch up on all the books and video games we've been consuming lately. And there's a YouTube channel for Novel Gaming, so check that out too. What about you?
Awesome. Well, you can find me on Twitter at Derek B. Gale. That's where I'm most active, but you can find me on other platforms under that name, or Dare Bear, Mr. Dare Bear. I have a podcast that I do with my co-host David called Gimmicks, where we look at all the high-concept, experimental, structure-breaking, gimmicky episodes of television. And I also have a podcast that I do with my co-host Tommy called Lee Carvalho's Potting Challenge, which is a Simpsons gaming podcast where we're going through all of these Simpsons tie-in video games chronologically. You can also find me on Twitch with a show that I do on the Sci-Fi Explosions Twitch channel. It's called Tokusatsu Thursdays. It's a show that we do at least once a month, sometimes more than once a month, but that is one where if you like Godzilla, you'll like Tokusatsu, because Godzilla is Tokusatsu. We'll stream Toku shows, clips, commercials, music videos. There is actually going to be a new Tokusatsu Thursday stream tomorrow as of the day this episode drops. That's going to be Thursday the 28th. That's actually going to be an Easter special that we're doing. And again, that is going to be on twitch.tv/sci-fi explosion. If you want to support this show, I would point you actually to our Walloping Web Snappers Patreon at patreon.com/Walloping Web Snappers. That's obviously the name of our Spider-Man podcast, but that supports everything that Doug and I do together. And we do occasionally drop some Godzilla-related bonus content on there, as well as bonus Spider-Man content if you like Spider-Man, and some other shows as well. You can check out our Discord as well. We have a link to that in the show notes. That is also our Walloping Web Snappers Discord, but we do have a channel for the Skreonk podcast if you want to specifically talk about this show. Email us any questions or feedback at skreonkpodcast@gmail.com. like Robert's, if you give me some really good, cool information that would be useful to the podcast and want us to read it on the show, absolutely will, because stuff is very, very helpful. So welcome all of your thoughts and experiences and perspectives that Doug and I don't have. It's a really cool thing to have for something, especially that's such a long history like Godzilla does. Also, if you want to support us, an easy way to do it is to rate, review, and subscribe on all the podcast platforms that you use. And like I said, next month, we're returning to the 80s for the first Versus movie of the Heisei era with Godzilla versus Biollante.
I'm nervous but excited.
Yeah, see you then.
Bye.